Good evening, everyone. Welcome, Chief Ireland and Chief Gallant, Police Chief Chair, or Chair of the Police Board, Bob McLaughlin, and guests from around the community. I'd ask for an approval of the agenda, please. Councillor Schreier, moved by Councillor Schreier, Deputy Mayor Schreier, seconded by Councillor Beth Thompson. On the question, please vote now. Our towns and our region continue to grow and improve, and as a region, we should be celebrating all the good things that happen within our region. So congratulations to the town of Hampton and to the town of Rothesay. On Saturday this past week, I was invited to the first Pakistani Independence Day celebration for Atlantic Canada. This celebrated the Pakistani community, and it was a wonderful event, and I felt extremely welcomed. And our Pakistani community felt very welcomed in our region. So I encourage them to certainly encourage their families who are moving here from Pakistan to look at our region and specifically to look at Quispamsis. I encourage them also to share their culture, to retain their culture, and know that together, as we celebrate multiculturalism, we become a stronger community, and that's what we want to see here in Quispamsis. So I'm certainly pleased that the president of the Pakistani community, Tariq Sayed, invited me to attend this, and it was actually held right here in our community at the Qplex. So thank you very much to Mr. Sayed. I would like to call upon Councillor Bigger for the moment of reflection and the treaty acknowledgement, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. We would like to respectfully acknowledge that Quispamsis exists on the traditional territory of the Wolastoqiyik, Maliseet, and Micmac people, whose ancestors, along with Passamaquoddy tribes, signed peace and friendship treaties with the British Crown in the 1700s. We would like to take this moment to pay respect to the elders, past and present, and the descendants of this traditional territory. And may we remind ourselves of the important work we have before us tonight. May we make good decisions without prejudice or bias, and always in the best interests of our community, which we are here to serve. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'll now ask if there is any disclosure of interests to anyone. Not seeing any, we will carry on with presentations. Our first presentation this evening is the Kennebecasis Regional Joint Board of Police Commissioners, and I invite Chief Wayne Gallant to the podium. Thank you, and welcome, Chief Gallant. Nice to see you here.
McLaughlin is here as well with me this evening. So thank you for this opportunity to provide you an orientation to the police force serving the communities of Kennebecasis and Rothesay. First slide. Okay, second slide, yeah. So this chart is basically the organizational chart for the Kennebecasis Regional Police Force. As you're looking at it there, you'll see that there's essentially 4 streams. We have 4 senior management team members, myself as the Chief of Police, as the Deputy Chief, who also oversees the Criminal Investigations Division. And we have the inspector in charge of patrol operations who oversees our patrol units and our traffic units. And we also have an inspector in charge of administration, which is basically all the support services that go in to supporting that service delivery model. Under there is our community policing unit as well. So essentially what you have is you have 39 uniform officers supported by 6 civilian staff, and they're broken out there by rank for you on the right-hand side. In support of that as well, we have one human resources professional who was hired a couple of years ago, who's been a great addition to the police force. Next slide, please. So this is the organizational snapshot for you, basically outlining the elements of the police force. So in human resources, we have 39 uniformed officers, 6 civilian staff. We have 4 part-time support employees that look after janitorial, financial accounting, IT, and maintenance. We have 7 volunteer auxiliary officers who put in hundreds of volunteer hours in your communities. We have 1 police chaplain, again, who puts in a lot of hours in your community as well. Our budget for 2021 is a little over $7 million, and the total of the salary budget, which makes up for a little more than 80% of the total budget, is $5.6 million. We have 17 police vehicles, 2 in addition to 2 ATVs, and 1 motorcycle, primarily for traffic enforcement, obviously in the summertime. In terms of our calls for service, we average about 10,000 calls for service a year. And about 2,500 of those result in long-term investigative files. Long-term being, more than that single shift that a matter could be concluded in. Top calls for service last year, and I would say traditionally this is around the same, at least in my experience here over the last 4 years, is driving and traffic complaints, which are very prevalent in my experience as a police leader in other jurisdictions. Much more prevalent here in the Kennebecasis Valley than other places I've worked. Suspicious activity, so that could be anything from, I just saw a suspicious car in my neighborhood or a suspicious person or whatever the case may be, so that would be included in that. Criminal code investigation, so actual crime that takes place and is reported or observed or discovered. In terms of its pervasiveness within policing all across the country, and it occupies our time a fair bit here as well. So this could range from anything directly related to a mental health call, so somebody that's in mental health crisis, or a crime that's related to somebody that's struggling with mental illness. Next slide, please. So the services we provide, so just for context, we're the 3rd largest police force in the province of New Brunswick. By Canadian standards, though, we're still a relatively small police force. Our services are not all-encompassing. We rely on other police services in other jurisdictions to provide us support on certain matters. So just to take you through what we do provide, we have the patrol unit, we have the plainclothes criminal investigations division, which encompasses major crime investigations. So they could be investigating anything from a fraud complaint to a homicide. And then we have our street crime unit, which is sort of amalgamated in there, and we do some integrated work with St. John City Police in that. And we have a criminal intelligence unit, which provides us regular intelligence bulletins and information. We have a traffic services unit of 5 officers. 1 is assigned to each platoon with a supervisor that sort of roves. We have 1 community policing officer who's supported by the inspector of administration and other officers who engage in those activities quite frequently in the communities. A couple of years ago, we established our first official forensic identification section, so we didn't have to rely on other police forces for that. So we have 1 officer that's dedicated to those duties. We have 2 officers in a court unit, fully occupies their time. We provide intelligence-led policing. I talked about the intelligence. That's within the major crime section. We have an integrated child exploitation unit, which is jointly with the RCMP and with the St. John City Police Force, but it's housed in our building here in Quispamsis. We also have the Provincial Firearms Program, which is housed at our building, and they actually pay us rent to be there, but they run that program. There's a lot of synergy there with the NWEST program, which is the last bullet there, the National Firearms Investigation Program. So it works very well for us. In terms of underwater recovery, we have to rely on private contractors for that. We don't have an underwater recovery team. We do have remote aerial vehicles, and we have people who are trained to operate those vehicles. They require certifications from Transport Canada in order to be able to do that. And they do have regular jobs besides that, but they are specialists in that. And we have 2 ATVs, as I said earlier, and we try to do as many ATV patrols as we possibly can throughout the year, but we're often challenged to be able to do that. The operational model is a 24/7 model, so there's no, there's no periods when there aren't officers working in your communities, unlike some communities in New Brunswick. We have 4 platoons of 6 officers per platoon, and one of those officers is traditionally assigned to traffic. The platoons have a minimum requirement collectively negotiated of 3 officers per shift, and about 15 to 33% of the time these shifts are working at 3 officers per shift. The other services that we get provided by way of memorandum of understanding with other agencies, we have a police service dog with the St. John Police Force. The RCMP can also provide us those services. We have prisoner detention. We don't have any ability to house prisoners overnight at our police station, so we do that with the St. John Police Force as well. Our dispatch services were switched over to the City of Fredericton earlier this year. And the explosive disposal program is through the RCMP, and the tech crime, which is sort of the IT investigative side, is also through the RCMP. We have no capacity to do that sort of investigation. So key strategic issues, and not to be confused with our strategic priorities. We have 5 strategic priorities that were derived from community consultations. There are youth, traffic safety, crime reduction, crime prevention, employee wellness, and connection to our communities. Well, what you see here is basically the strategic issues at the governance level that the board is most concerned about. So they do a risk assessment each year and they identify risks, and we have a multi-year strategic plan, which you can see on our websites available there. So the first one is the policing agreement between the 2 municipalities has remained unsigned for the last several years. It hasn't been signed in my time as chief since 2017. It doesn't present any day-to-day issues, but it is a governance issue and something that I think the 2 communities need to discuss at some point. We have a continuing challenge to continue to the success that we have, because we are a couple of the safest communities in Canada, and the Jurastat Statistics Canada reports annually show that out. Most recent year, we're second of all police forces and jurisdictions in Canada in terms of relative safety and file clearance rate for police forces. So the expectations are high in this community. We respond to a lot of calls that some other police forces don't respond to, whether it could be barking dog complaints or trivial traffic complaints in some cases. So a lot of places wouldn't necessarily spend a lot of time on those things. We do. We try to meet there's no call too small sort of approach at our police force. So it keeps us occupied in that manner. The current building is not meeting the needs, and that's not in relation to the numbers of officers, it's stuff. So the building was opened in 2005, and the requirements to operate a modern-day police force equipment-wise has grown exponentially over the last several years. And as a result, we're really challenged for storage space, and I'll show you some pictures on that here in a minute. Technological challenges. We have major problems in terms of being able to support ourselves from an IT perspective, just in terms of setting up a computer. If somebody needs a new computer, we only have a part-time person who's only available because he has a full-time job otherwise to do that for us. And then the other challenge is on the investigative side. Every crime almost today has some technological element, and our officers, patrol officers, are not well equipped to deal with those sorts of investigations. So we need some kind of specialists in that regard. And the current collective agreement expires at the end of 2022. Next slide, please. Resourcing context, I've sort of talked about that, but essentially what I'm telling you here is that the last resource addition was in 1998. If you reflect on how the communities have grown, how staff in the municipal offices have grown, at some point in time, I think the communities have to wrap their head around that the police force here needs to grow at some point in time to match the growth in the community. And I think that time should be sooner rather than later. And the community changes are listed there. There's a massive change in demands on policing. And the current shift minimums present some risk at 3 officers for these 2 communities. Thinking that if we have one mental health call that we have to escort a person to the hospital, then that's a 3-hour time period where 2 of our officers are essentially tied up at the St. John Regional Hospital, leaving 1 officer back here to protect the 2 communities. Makes it hard to respond to those no calls too small philosophy. Next slide, please. And in terms of space, you see some photos here. It does present some operational risk for us. We've had a few issues with that, but you can see the amount of stuff that is gathered up. We are challenged file space-wise. We have those 2 containers that are unsightly in the back. I'd really like to get rid of those. So there will be a proposal for an expansion to the building coming forward to the 2 towns. Next slide, please. And the IT challenges, I spoke about these, so I'm not going to cover this in a lot of great detail. But right now we have an agreement in principle to share that resource with the fire department, who are also challenged to provide IT services. So I think that's a good possibility going forward, and if the two communities agree on funding for that. Next slide, please. And that's it. Your Worship.
Thank you very much, Chief. Great presentation, and thank you to you and the force for keeping our community safe and for us being the #2 community in across Canada. I think we are measured against about 300 other communities our size, and so that certainly is a feather in the hat of your force and yourself. Thank you for that.
Okay.
We have some questions here, so I'm going to go to Councillor Donovan.
Thank you very much for your presentation. It was quite informative. The only question I have is, in reference to the expansion. You said that in your presentation that if you pick somebody up and you need to house them overnight, you bring them to St. John. Are there any current plans in the expansion to have like a cell or anything like that at the KV force, or are you going to constantly rely on the St. John Police Force to house individuals?
From an efficiency perspective and a risk perspective, having it in St. John, I think, makes a lot of sense. The RCMP also use St. John in terms of Hampton and other areas. So I think having a regional center makes sense. Where it doesn't make sense is when you have to bring somebody in there and you leave your communities unprotected, obviously. So that's a risk, absolutely. We understand that, and we try to minimize that as much as possible. We do have cells, but they're not equipped with toilets and things like that. So they're only if we bring somebody in and you're interviewing them or whatever the case may be. So they might be held there for a couple hours before we bring them into the cells in St. John. So there's no current plans to do that. And I can tell you where police forces can, they want to sort of get out of that business of housing prisoners just because of the risk involved. So we're grateful to the St. John Police Force for providing us that service.
If you would, Your Worship, I have 2 questions. The first one is on services provided. I don't see anything there for domestic violence. And I know that there was a partnership with KB Outreach, or I'm not quite sure of the name now. So I wondered why that's not on the list of services.
So excellent question. It's absolutely is always front and center at the Kennebec Regional Police Force. We do have an intimate partner violence coordinator, not a full-time person. As many of our officers with the size of our police force, they wear multiple hats. Mm-hmm. And in this case, we have one patrol officer who has a lot of passion for this particular area, and it's a big area of concern for every police force. And she is really, really strong ambassador and leader in that regard for us. So she coordinates our efforts. She reviews all our files in addition to the normal reviews that we do. We're actively engaged with UNBSJ on solutions in regards to what we can do community-wise, and you mentioned KV Outreach. We've partnered with them on our soft interview room, things like that. So it is very much a priority, even though I may not have listed it as such when I spoke, yeah.
Okay, thank you. And Your Worship, my second question has to do with, we get a lot of questions about speeding, traffic control, traffic calming measures. It's a hot topic all the time, and you mentioned it earlier in your presentation. So explain to me, so if there's 3 officers on duty, does that mean there's 1 officer for traffic control per shift, or exactly how does that work?
Yeah, so not necessarily. So I'll explain it this way. We have dedicated patrol officers. There's 6 per platoon, 6 officers assigned per platoon. So that's the maximum number of officers unless otherwise for some special event or something that you would see working in the 2 communities on any given night. So we have the general duty response. So those are the officers that are responding to the calls coming in, doing proactive work, whether it's intelligence gathering or whatever the case may be. So they're happening. But as a part of the expectations of their day-to-day duties, they're also expected to do traffic work. Not as much as the dedicated traffic officer. There's 1 officer on each platoon who is dedicated entirely to traffic safety. So whether that's giving tickets or educating the public on certain issues or focusing on the traffic priorities of each community, they're responsible for that. So, but on any given night, of course, you could have that officer off on vacation, you could be off sick or whatever the case may be. So there's no guarantee that you would have a dedicated traffic officer working every shift. But on every shift, traffic remains a priority for us as an organization. So all of the frontline patrol members know that, and they know that they have to contribute to the outcomes there. So they do that function.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. And seeing no further questions for Chief Gallant, I would ask for a motion. To thank Chief Gallant for his presentation. Councillor Thompson.
Yes, Your Worship. I would like to thank Chief Glant for his presentation and the information presented be received and filed.
Thank you. It's been moved by Councillor Thompson and seconded by Councillor Luck. On the question, please vote now. Motion carried 7-0. Thank you very much, Chief. Thank you for being here this evening.
One final invitation, and it's a standing invitation for any councillor to stop into the office or request a ride along, especially now that the restrictions are lifted. You'll have some COVID questionnaires, but we'd welcome that opportunity to take you out and show you what's going on in your community. So that is a standing invitation. Thank you very much for the opportunity tonight.
Thank you, Chief. Have a good rest of your evening. (5B) Kennebecasis Valley Fire Department, Chief Bill Ireland. Welcome, Chief. Always nice to see you. Thank you for being here this evening.
Thank you, Your Worship. Nice to see you as well, and nice to see so many new and familiar faces around the council chamber. I have too many slides for the time that I'm allotted, so I'm going to be speaking very quickly, and I have some sympathy for whoever's trying to keep up with my presentation. So where I wanted to start tonight was just with an overview of some of the legislation that oversees our organization. So starting on the provincial level, I know you've been learning a little bit about the Local Governance Act. So just a reminder that there's nothing in that legislation that obligates you to have a fire service. I'm glad that you chose to do that. I think it's a benefit to the community. And just a key takeaway from tonight is the fact that it's council that determines the level of fire protection in the community. It's not me as the fire chief, it's not our firefighters, it's you as council that make that decision. So moving on then, because you have a fire department means you're also obligated to follow the Fire Prevention Act. Your takeaway from that is that there's one fire marshal in the province, and this is a big province, so what he does is delegate some of his authority. Some of that authority flows through to me as a local assistant to the fire marshal, so I have the same power and authority in our community to enforce that piece of legislation here, and it's all dedicated to personal protection and the protection of property as well. Because we're an employer, we also have to follow the Occupational Health and Safety Act, which for us is a bit of a challenge because we have to take every reasonable precaution to protect the health and safety of our employees. We're a risk-based organization, so that presents some particular challenges to us. There's also some specific provisions in that piece of legislation with regards to the personal protective equipment and the type of equipment we need to acquire and maintain and test. So moving beyond provincial legislation then, both towns have recently adopted a new fire prevention bylaw, which is helpful for us because it now has consistent language between the two towns, which was always a challenge for us historically. So again, it is very reflective of the Fire Prevention Act. It's intended to protect people's safety and make sure that buildings are kept safe. It also gives us an opportunity to charge some fees for some of our non-emergency services, and also gives us the authority to levy fines in case there's violations of that bylaw. Probably most significantly is the Regional Fire Agreement. That's the agreement that both towns have entered into that means that you share ownership of this corporation that is the fire service. And within that document, there are certain requirements that have to be met. You're agreeing to operate a fire station in both communities. You're agreeing to maintain a minimum level of staff in both communities, and you're also agreeing to meet certain standards for the level of service you're providing. It's important for you to understand that as a council, you have appointed 6 commissioners, 3 from each community, 2 council members, and 1 member appointed at large. And Councillor Miller is the newly elected chair of the fire board for our current term. The mandate of the fire board is obviously to give me direction to provide some financial oversight to the organization. They are the authority for signing and entering into agreements. They're to engage in long-range planning on your behalf, They're to evaluate the performance of the fire department and make recommendations for improvement. And probably most importantly is to communicate with you as council. They are the conduit through which information flows back and forth between the department. So that takes care of all the high level stuff. Just a very quick overview of our operations. On an annual basis, we're a fairly consistent organization. I'm going to put my hands down so I stop doing that. We consistently respond to between 1,000 and 1,200 emergency incidents a year. That number's been tempered slightly by the pandemic, but it's a fairly consistent number over my time here. Just slightly more than half of that is related to medical emergencies. Now, just for your understanding, we don't respond to every medical emergency in our community. We respond to roughly 30% of the calls that Ambulance New Brunswick is responding to, and only the most severe priority ones, the ones that a very quick intervention can make a change in the outcome. The remaining 50% is almost nicely divided in half again. 25% is related to the fire service that we provide. So either things that are on fire or are potentially going to be on fire. That takes up 25% of our response. And the rest is made up with what we call technical rescue. So that's motor vehicle accidents, water rescues, ice rescue, slope rescue. And the rest doesn't fit into a nice category. It's just generally public hazards. So after a storm, if there's a live power line laying on the street, if there's flooding, those sort of things fit into that other category. We also spend most of our time on non-emergency operations, thankfully. So that includes things like our fire prevention and public education programs. We spend a great deal of our time training and making sure our certifications are up to where they need to be. We also do all their value-added services, such as the installation of car seats. Infant car seats is a big thing for us. So not everything we do is emergency related. We're busy otherwise as well. I can't remember what my next slide is, Aaron. Oh, so how do we accomplish this? We have 46 staff. 6 of those are non-union positions. So in addition to myself, I have a deputy chief, 2 what we call division chiefs, an administrative assistant, and a finance clerk. We do all of our own administration internally. And then your firefighting force is a unionized force. They belong to an organization called the International Association of Firefighters, one of the 10 largest trade organizations in North America, very influential, very powerful trade organization. So we have 32 full-time and 8 part-time, what we call holiday relief firefighters, and their role is to fill in for any vacancies created by vacation or illness and that sort of thing. So we take those 40 firefighters and we split them into 4 groups that we call platoons. And so there's 4 platoons, and that's how we're able to accomplish our 24-hour-a-day, 7-day-a-week staffing model. So each one of those platoons of 10 is divided in half again between the 2 stations, so that our minimum staffing complement on a daily basis is 4 firefighters per station in both communities. I mentioned we're a 24/7 operation, so the shift schedule for firefighters follows a 24-hour on, 3-day off model, and the next slide illustrates that for you. So over the course of a 28-day cycle, or 4 weeks, essentially, firefighters work 7 times within that 28-day period. We have a lot of expensive buildings and equipment. So as I mentioned, a fire station in both communities, lots of fire trucks and specialized equipment, which is shown in the next slide, including things like a fireboat, some off-road rescue equipment. We don't have a motorcycle, unfortunately. But we do have a lot of equipment, and we also have a lot of specialized equipment, lots of ladders, hose, breathing apparatus, radios, medical equipment. All these things come with a fairly high expense, which is a nice segue to talk about what's really important and how much does all this cost. In 2021, our operating budget is about $5.6 million, and it's broken down in a fairly consistent manner every year. Roughly 75% of that goes towards paying your unionized workforce, and the balance looks after everything else we do. So keeping the lights on in the station, the fuel in the fire trucks, providing insurance for the organization, doing our training and our fire prevention, paying your non-union staff, supplementing the municipal water supply through a subsidy we pay to the hydrant system, and also our dispatch service out of St. John. So in addition to our operating budget, we're managing about $7.5 million of capital assets. That's those buildings and fire trucks and all that specialized equipment. And each year we make a request for a capital budget, which takes care of the big ticket items. This year you approved a $333,000 capital budget. Next year, the big ask is coming, and we'll talk about that in a little bit here. So what I really want to focus on in my last 2 minutes is what you can expect in your term on council. I mentioned we're a unionized workforce, and that group is working without a collective agreement currently that expired at the end of 2020. So we've been negotiating in earnest in that regard, but we haven't reached an agreement yet, something that will be coming to you at some point in the future. We're also an accredited, looking to become an accredited agency. Think of that as a continuous quality improvement process. We are registered with an organization called the Center for Public Safety Excellence, and this is a big project that we've been already engaged in for 4 years, and we hope to have wrapped up by 2023. We invited you next month to a strategic plan presentation that I've been outranked by the Prime Minister on for our date. He didn't consult with me before calling the election, unfortunately, so we will be revising that invitation and sending out a new one to you once we've secured a date for that. So stand by on that one. I mentioned that there's a big capital request ask coming in 2022, and that's for the planned renovation and expansion of Station 2, the station that's in Quispamsis. That's going to be about a $3 million request for this year. This is something that's long overdue and been planned for a number of years, so you'll look forward from hearing that presentation from me next month. Your regional fire agreement was extended for 2 years, so it will expire at the end of 2022, so that's something else that will occur in your term on council. You've been hearing a lot from the province about vibrant and sustainable communities. I think the fire service is already ahead on that one. We cooperate with our neighbors very well. We have for a long period of time. We share resources on a reciprocal basis. There's certainly room to expand and improve upon that, but we've already got a foundation for that sort of activity in place. So I think we're in a good position with regards to that. You're going to hear me talk quite a bit about our evolving risk profile. As you're aware, there's been a proliferation of multi-unit, multi-story buildings going up in both communities, which is taxing our resources and putting us in a difficult situation. So you're going to hear about our solutions for that problem. And finally, I just wanted to touch on the issue of firefighter wellness, which extends across all emergency services. And I know Chief Gallant deals with this as well. And that's the issue of the almost epidemic situation with regards to post-traumatic stress disorder and the difficulty that's creating for us to manage at a local level. These are long-term types of injuries that take a long time and a lot of resources to recover from, and it is presenting a particular challenge for us. So I am out of time. You're going to shut my mic off, so please follow us on all of these social media options available to you, our website, our Facebook page, our Twitter account, and our Instagram. Thank you.
Chief, thank you very much, and thank you to your board and to your force as well for keeping our community safe. We certainly appreciate it. I will open the floor for questions. Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you, Chief, for the presentation. Very thorough in 10 minutes, I can say. And I like the fact that you went through everything. And for those that, if you can make it to that strategic plan, I would highly recommend it. I mean, it's our 5-year strategic plan that we've been working as a board. I've been on the board for, I think, 7 or 8 years now. So, and so we're going to present it to both councils. I would just also, Chief, if you would help me, I'm glad you broke down everything so people understand what it is. It's fire suppression, it's medical services, and everything from helping putting in car seats. But when I first started, I had this question, and I've heard this question on almost every new member that comes to the board, and probably those that aren't on the board have this question is, for the medical calls that you go to, who decides how you go there, and why do you send 4 people in the truck? Because that's a question that comes up every time, and I had that same question. So if you would mind answering that one, please. Thanks.
Yeah, so the first part of that is who decides how we go. When you call 911 with a medical emergency, there's a dispatcher that uses a process called triage to assess the severity of the nature of your emergency. And they have 5 different levels that they can categorize a medical emergency with. We only respond to the 2 highest levels of that. So as I mentioned previously, we do not respond to every medical emergency in the community. Roughly about 30% of Ambulance New Brunswick's call volume in our community requires our attendance as well. And part of the reason for that is at least half the time we're arriving on scene before Ambulance New Brunswick, and we can start that intervention that's so important even sooner. In terms of our response to that, the bulk of what we do involves responding with a fire engine. So a fire engine in North America is typically staffed with 4 firefighters because medical emergencies are not the only thing that we do. And we have to be prepared for the fact that we could be at a medical emergency and be called out subsequently to a fire emergency and have to respond directly from that to the other. In addition, there have been studies conducted that show the efficiency of arriving with that many personnel on scene, how critical tasks get completed more quickly, and it is the model that's used all across North America for a fire service response to medical emergencies. That's a complex issue. There's a lot of layers to that. There's been separate presentations to council just on that issue, so I know you've got a full agenda tonight, so hopefully that covers the basis.
Thank you, Chief, and you can correct me on this one, but I believe when we did the analysis too, just to look at the cost, because the question was how much does it cost us to go? Well, it's a little bit of wear and tear in the vehicles and more medical supplies, but I think on an annual basis, it was well under 10,000 if I
Yeah,
remember
it works out, and it depends a little bit on call volume, but it works out to in the neighborhood of $30 a response is what it's costing you. You're paying for the resource to be there anyway. It's just as efficient for it to be out serving the community as it is standing by waiting for an emergency to happen.
Thank you. Seeing no further questions, Councillor Olson.
Thank you, Chief, for your presentation. I've often heard the same question that Councillor Miller has just asked about. And my personal reply to that, to myself a lot of times, is that I don't care who gets there first. If I'm down, I want somebody that knows what they're doing to be there as quickly as possible, or a family member, or anything like that. So, but I am reassured that we are sort of grading the needs from experience, and also that the numbers aren't that down, or the cost isn't that significant either. So I think it's a good service rather than just cut it, period, like, you know, and wait for an ambulance to go by when the fire truck's maybe around the corner or something like that.
Exactly.
But no, I hear what you're saying. So thank you very much. Good presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you. I believe there's a request for thanking the chief. Councillor Donovan.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'd like to make a motion, and the motion would be that Chief Ireland be thanked for his presentation and the information he presented be received and filed.
It's been moved by Councillor Donovan and seconded by Deputy Mayor Schreier. On the question, seeing there are none, please vote now. Motion carried, 7-0. Thank you very much, Chief. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Five C is Kennebecasis Valley Public Library. Ms. Nora Emerson, Acting Library Director. Welcome here this evening. Nice to see you.
Thank you. Nice to see you as well. I'm a new face at the library myself, so it's nice to meet you all. Some of you I've only had the opportunity to meet virtually, so it's nice to see you in person. So tonight I'm just going to give you a brief overview of our services. So public libraries in New Brunswick exist as a partnership between the provincial government and municipalities or associations. In KPL's case, we're actually duly supported by the town of Quispamsis and the town of Rothesay, and we are directed by a board of 9 members representing both communities, the current chairperson of which is Linda Hansen. Our activities are guided by the New Brunswick Public Library System's mission, which dictates that libraries provide equitable and free services that enrich the social, cultural, and economic vitality of our communities by opening doors to lifelong learning for all. Since the beginning of 2021, NBPLS has been pursuing strategic priorities that include innovative service delivery, an expanded digital scope, championing reading and information literacy, partnership-led programming, and to measure our success against the level of circulation, visitors, and program attendance in our libraries. Beyond our provincial mission, KPL's activities are driven by the fact that the Valley is home to an uncommonly strong reading culture. Having worked in libraries throughout the Fundy region, I can assure you that the value is unique in the high levels of literacy, engagement, and intergenerational patronage that we see at the library. To maintain and develop this culture, KPL keeps our shelves stocked with local authors and new releases while challenging the community to develop their technological, financial, and cultural literacies. So just to give you some quick statistics, peak circulation at KPL sees 4,403 items leaving the library per hour. The New Brunswick Public Library System offers over 2 million items free of charge, covering things like books and DVDs, but also ranging to things like snowshoes and cake tins and children's toys. KPL hosts 65,549 physical items and sees 10,500 people monthly and over 100,000 people each year walking through the doors. Based on foot traffic and circulation, we're one of the busiest libraries in the region, and when you look at hour-by-hour rate of circulation, we are the busiest library in the Fundy region. The Fundy Library region extends from Campobello Island to Sussex. So we operate with a staff of 6 permanent employees, 2 part-time clerks, 2 full-time clerks, a library assistant, and a library director. And we supplement our staffing with 15 casual and seasonal employees. Our annual budget for 2021 is $232,380. Moving on to our services. Beyond our physical collection, we have a fully digital component to the library, which includes ebooks, magazines, movies, newspapers, and etc. We have a books by mail service, which delivers to patrons who are housebound or unable to travel. We offer free annual tax clinics in partnership with CIVTP. Our collection is particularly geared towards accessibility with materials for the visually impaired and for people who are learning to read, no matter their age. And our collection is multilingual. KPL hosts sizable collections of French, Korean, and Arabic texts, among others. We host free summertime literacy tutoring for elementary students in partnership with the Elementary Literacy Foundation of New Brunswick. And we have year-round opportunities for youth in our communities to gain volunteer and employment experience in the library. MBPLS coordinates with the provincial government to provide free passes to New Brunswick cultural sites, including Kingsbury Garden, Fundy National Park, Hopewell Rocks, King's Landing, and others to anyone with a library card. And KPL records some of the highest rates of participation in this program in the region. Looking over the past 17 months since the pandemic began, KPL has remained open throughout the pandemic, even in red phase after a brief closure in the spring of 2020. We've continued to offer our essential services, including internet access and our physical collections, and our programming went fully virtual last year, transitioned into hybrid formats in early 2021, and is returning to fully in-person formats in September 2021. Looking to our programs, our programming is largely partnership-driven. KPL and community organizations coordinate to offer a wide range of programs that respond to the interests of our patrons. We aim to hold something for everyone. From birth to old age, we have library card holders who are 6 months old, and we have library card holders who are 102 years old, so we strive for variety. To meet people where they are, we extend ourselves outside of the library. This summer, we've hosted pop-up libraries on the Rossay Commons and at the Kingston Farmers Market, and we have our own little free library just outside the door there, where anyone can borrow and donate books. And a common thread between all of our programs, a common thread between all of our programs is connection, particularly for those who may otherwise be somewhat socially isolated, including new parents and the elderly. The programs we reintroduced after the beginning of the pandemic aimed to reach these people in particular. So no matter the format, our programs offer people the rare opportunity to try something new for free, whether it is a chance for children to write to their favorite characters or have them write back, a place for newcomers and seniors to meet and relax, or a story walk for families to enjoy. KPL gives people room to explore. So our services prioritize lifelong learning with opportunities to learn, create, and play. We respond to and collaborate with the community to offer them a place to explore and to belong. And with that, I'll bring the overview to a close. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Emerson. I recall back when we were doing the expansion on the library, and we had a little bit of pushback from people saying, oh no, books are going electronic and nobody's going to use the library. But the library is so much more than that. It's a community center. It's a welcoming place for people to come and use the cubicles downstairs and to go to the puppet shows and some of the programs that are put on for people of all ages and all demographics. So Thank you for what you do, and certainly we're very pleased to have the library in our region. So I'm going to go to Councillor Donovan, who is our library rep on council.
Thank you, Your Worship. I don't have a whole lot to add to your presentation. I just want to take a second to say thank you very much for such a pretty presentation. It's a beautiful, beautiful slideshow there. I don't have very good presentation skills when it comes to making PowerPoints and stuff, but you did a really good job. And I just wanted to say that I'm really looking forward to working with you and our team on the library board. I think we have a pretty solid structure going, and really excited about it. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship.
Councillor Luck.
Thank you very much. It was a very informative presentation. One of the questions I had is, how is the Kennebecasis Public Library promoting some of these amazing services? I'm just curious, again, I learned a lot tonight, so I'm just wondering if there's other people like me in the Valley that might not be aware of some of the great offerings that you have. So I'm just curious. Thank you.
Libraries' advertising budgets are zero, so we do a large part of our promotion on social media, and in part, our programs outside of the library are our most effective mode of promotion. I had mentioned we do pop-up libraries. We essentially set up a pop-up booth and offer all the same services we offer in the physical library out in the community to meet people who might not otherwise enter the library physically. So we show up where people don't expect us, and we post on social media.
Thank you very much. I will go now to Councillor Bigger.
Great, thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, great presentation, and like Councillor Luck, lots of services here that surprised me. I'm coming to get some cake pans tomorrow, for example, so I'm going to bake you a cake, buddy. I notice on the programs slide, you've got a photo of a little library.
Yes.
And I just wondered, maybe it ties in a bit with what Councillor Luck was saying about promotion, but I've been in some communities where little libraries are a wonderful addition to their kind of cultural, sort of mosaic of what they have going on. And what is the presence of little libraries around around KV? Or do you know?
Well, Little Free Libraries are a specific organization that functions throughout North America. So as far as I know, ours right outside the door there is the only one, the official Little Free Library within the Valley. There may be other unofficial Little Free Libraries, though. Yeah.
Thanks. Yeah, no, of course, that's right. There is an organization that actually kind of exists officially speaking for that. But I don't know, is there, and again, I mean, certainly I'm sure that the committee has got the issue well in hand. So I'm just brainstorming, I guess, more than anything. Yeah, I just think that they're a lovely, quaint way to engage with the community. And I would certainly love to see more of that pop up around,
I agree. And we certainly have the means for it. Part of our motivation for putting up the Little Free Library is that we receive too many donations from the community and want an opportunity to redistribute them. So that is partly the function of our Little Free Library. So we could certainly have more. We would have use for them.
Cool. Thank you.
Councillor Olson.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you very much for your presentation. Very interesting. I might suggest that at 10,500 visitors a month, I would say there's a lot of word of mouth advertisement that I was just at the library again today. Mm-hmm. And so I'm sure that the neighbors talk and everybody else, so it's well attended. Yes. You'd almost need a traffic policeman to keep the door open all the time or something like that. But it's very impressive, and thank you for your work.
Thank you.
Councillor Schreier.
Yes, I'd like to thank you for your presentation, Ms. Emerson, and I'd like to put a motion forward, Your Worship, that Ms. Emerson be thanked for her presentation and the information presented, received, and filed.
Thank you very much. It's been moved by Councillor Schreier and seconded by Councillor Luck. On the question, seeing there is none, please vote now. Motion carried, 7-0. Thank you very much. We
you
look
very
forward
much.
to seeing you in a month's time or so.
Yes.
Five D on the agenda, update of Town of Quispamsis' Accelerating Smart Energy Communities Project, Eddie Ofield, Quest, Senior Lead Projects and Advisory Services. I don't see Mr. Oldfield here this evening.
I am here.
Oh, there you are.
Um,
Hi, Eddie. Nice to see you.
Hi, nice to see you all.
Welcome. We're very happy to have you.
All right, well, I wanted to thank Mayor and Council for some of your time tonight. I just want to start by saying it's been a long time working with the town of Quispamsis. Since roughly 2001, I think is the first time I met Kathy Snow, and we've worked many years at advancing climate change goals and objectives with the town as well as other communities. So it's great to be here. I'm here today to speak specifically about
Mr.
our
Oldfield, could I just ask you to turn your microphone up a little bit if you are able to? Can you turn the volume up?
I'm not sure that I can. Can you hear me better now?
If you can hear me, we cannot hear you, Mr. Oldfield.
Is there a way to turn your volume up?
Mr. Oldfield, can you hear us?
Yes.
Okay, if you could turn your volume up, we missed the last few words there that you said.
Okay. You cannot hear me very well. I can. I'll try a different method if that is best.
Okay, perhaps, whoops. Perhaps you could proceed.
Hello?
Please proceed.
Okay, great. You can hear me now, right?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you very much. So I just want to thank you for your time tonight. I'm here specifically to speak to our Smart Energy Communities Accelerator program with the town of Quispamsis. Will you be advancing the slides for me, or should I share my screen?
We will advance those for you.
Okay, next slide, please. Our program is established with the support of the Atlantic Canada Opportunities Agency, the Department of Environment, local government through the Environmental Trust Fund, New Brunswick Power, Liberty Utilities, Stantec, and as well as Suncor Foundation. And this program is a pilot program for 2.5 years that will assist 10 New Brunswick communities, including one First Nation, to equip them with the tools and knowledge to advance on their journey of becoming a smart energy community. And these communities are at various stages of that journey. The town of Quispamsis happens to be among the forefront or leaders in that group, and I'll get into some details about that later. This is a 2.5 year pilot, but we hope to expand it nationally, and we're already well underway with this project. Next slide, please. The goal of the program is to assist those 10 communities both to develop their community energy or climate action plans, as well as to put in place the necessary foundations for implementing those plans over the longer term. And I will get into the description of the services offered through this program. It starts with, and we've already onboarded 10 communities, it also starts with developing a Smart Energy Community Accelerator Plan, which we've presented to the town of Quispamsis already. And that includes the set of services that are being delivered over the next 2 years. Part of the outcomes we hope for are not just to help the communities we're working with, but to conduct an economic impact assessment of the full implementation of community energy or climate action plans in respect to reducing greenhouse gas emissions, but also the sort of local economic benefits that can be gained by keeping energy dollars local. This is a culturally responsive program, so we've had to tailor it to the local context and needs of each community that we're working with. And we have a developmental evaluator that is helping us to evaluate the program as we go through it. Next slide, please. Alongside our team, we have a staff of about 12 people spread around Canada. I have about 6 working on this project, as well as 3 of our senior associates listed here, helping us with the delivery of specific services in the program. Next slide, please. These are the 10 communities involved currently. Florenceville, Woodstock and Perth Andover, Armocto, Village of Petitcodiac, Town of Quispamsis, St. Andrews, St. Stephen's, Sussex, Woodstock, I already mentioned Woodstock, of course, and St. Mary's First Nation. Next. So we recognize that communities in New Brunswick are at various stages of this journey, and we've categorized them into seekers, doers, and leaders. Of course, as you may imagine, seekers are those that are curious about addressing climate change or looking at how to create an economic program around energy. And they are the seekers. So they're ones that we're helping to develop those community energy plans, undertake economic impact assessment, and so on, setting them up essentially for implementation. The doers are communities that have a community energy plan, are moving forward in some fashion, but often uncoordinated, sort of in an ad hoc fashion. So this group is going to benefit from services that allow them to have an implementation strategy, achieving milestones 4 and 5 of the Partners for Climate Protection program, which you are a member of. And leaders are those who are already well on their way. They have an energy plan, and they are already they have dedicated resources for implementing that plan, but they require some customized services. Next slide, please. And this might be hard to read. It certainly is on my screen. It's essentially what this outlines here on the left are the set of services offered through this pilot program. And on the right, the 3 columns are your seekers, doers, and leaders. Obviously, there are services that are more specific to doers and leaders than there are for seekers. You are, I believe, in the leader category. So we've already undertaken the Smart Energy Community Benchmark Assessment, which looks at all aspects of the what you might consider a community energy plan, from land use, energy networks, transportation, buildings, waste and water, as well as foundational elements like governance, communications, data measurement, and strategy, and so on. So this is an assessment that allows us to understand where you are as a community and where you might want to go forward with. And that assessment has been completed and will be presented to your climate change committee, I believe, within the next month, Kathy. So we're also offering please stay on that slide for a second. The virtual community energy planning course for planning professionals is intended for planning professionals that you might have on staff or within the Regional Service Commission, if that's who you rely on. And it's developed out of York University, and it provides an energy lens to planning and development processes in the municipality. We're also conducting a land-based renewable energy map assessment of Woodstock, Perth Andover, and Florenceville. We had to limit the scope because it's quite a technical exercise. However, we have done a similar exercise with the City of St. John and the Town of Quispamsis. The geography of the Town of Quispamsis was included in that assessment, so there's certainly some value add there. Some of the other workshops we will be offering include a development or an implementation workshop for your community energy plans. We're already undertaking the economic impact assessments to understand what is the job creation potential, the energy dollars that are kept locally and can be reinvested in the local economy, and so on, of those plans. There's some additional services like a series of webinars that occurs monthly with expertise. We now help you navigate additional resources, and we're publishing success stories from the communities that we're working with through a Powered by Communities portal. Next, please. So we're well underway, as I mentioned. We're at stage 2, which is really the implementation stage of our program. So over the next year or year and a half, we'll be undertaking this set of services, followed by an evaluation. And if you go to the next slide, what this looks like for any community. This is just an example. I know it's a little bit small. Essentially a Gantt chart that shows the flow of the activities throughout the 2-year program. So each community has received a Gantt chart that's specific to their services being rendered. Next slide. I should also add that that Gantt chart is included with the terms of reference, the initial agreement that was signed. We have, just as a quick update, essentially already delivered all the accelerator plans, sent out data requests to each community that this data is used as part of the exercises that we facilitate. There's a lot of internal work in terms of training and preparation and materials development. As I mentioned, we're already undertaking many of the services outlined here, mainly in the preparation stage, but most of the delivery takes place starting this fall. Next slide, please. We also have some ongoing partnerships beyond just funding support, including with NB Power, who's providing additional expertise to the participating communities, the Smart Grid Innovation Network, who is interested to undertake an assessment of the electrification potential in 2 communities, and I believe I have Quispamsis shortlisted for that. We're also asking the town of Quispamsis to participate in a community energy planning course, as I mentioned earlier, but as a speaker. We're just still trying to confirm that. And it would be to talk about your experience as a community in moving along this journey. So I know Kathy's well aware of that request, and hopefully we'll have somebody on either staff or council to speak to our planning course. We also have a number of other partners that are providing additional value-added services throughout the program. I don't need to go into all of the details. And we're also hoping to engage, I shouldn't say hoping, we're engaging 6 communities through the Association of Francophone Municipalities in the same program. So overall, we should have 16 communities that are part of this pilot phase. That's all for me, so I open it up for questions on this. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Oldfield. Certainly, it's wonderful to see, as part of the Climate Change Committee, that we now have several of our staff as members of the Climate Change Committee working with you as well. So that's going to take our community and the municipality of Quispamsis into the future with certainly climate change in mind. So I'm very proud to say that we're working hard towards this quest. So I'm going to open it up to questions for Mr. Oldfield. I don't see any questions. Okay. Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you for your presentation. I guess I just have one question as far as the town of Quispamsis. Could you make any comment on how we're progressing, or do you see an area which we need to look at further?
Absolutely. Well, I would like to start by saying town of Quispamsis is actually a role model, and not just in New Brunswick from the size of your community's perspective, but I think across Canada. And if we can do things here, then why can't we do them in other places? So that's one perspective I definitely hold very strongly. I think in respect to what you can still do and what you might want to focus on in your term would include a community retrofit program using financing through the Federation of Canadian Municipalities, as well as regional transportation measures addressing not just transit but other modal options, active transportation, for example. And there could be others, but those are the first 2 that come to mind.
Councillor Olson.
Thank you very much for your presentation, Mr. Oldfield. As someone who's participated for quite some time along with you, I found it very interesting, and it's really important to participants to have somebody like yourself and your company or the people that you work with to facilitate and give direction to the participants. So we appreciate your guidance and your input, and appreciate working with you. So thank you very much for your presentation tonight.
Thank you very
Councillor Bigger.
Yeah, I think the volume of the microphone, what goes in here is going through Mr. Oldfield's speakers back into his microphone and back to us. That's why we're getting a ring, right? It's like a feedback loop that's happening. But anyway, that's not what I was going to say, but just thank you, Your Worship. Mr. Oldfield, thank you. This is a great presentation and it's a really cool initiative. And as a new councillor, I'm really intrigued by it. And I'm not on the Climate Action Committee, but Climate Change Committee, but I'm like most people, I'm definitely interested, and as a counselor, I'm particularly interested. And I just on slide 9, the service timeline example you have, I know that this presentation provides a great kind of overarching sort of measure of insight to the program at large, but I'm delighted to learn that we're a leader in this, but I just wonder, maybe this should be directed to our mayor or staff here, but I would love to see the timeline that's been established for our town, for Quispam specifically, and sort of, where, does that exist for us at this point?
Yes, it does. It's in the accelerator plan in terms of reference we provided you. I could probably pull it up quickly if you had the moment.
Well, it's perfectly fine if it could arrive subsequent to the meeting, just, via, perhaps through the acting CAO or something like that,
Sure.
if that was all right. I just would be very interested to see what our specific plan is, and if that's okay. But thank you for a great presentation as well. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bigger. Deputy Mayor Schreier.
Good evening. Thank you for your presentation. I do have one question, and I was hoping that you might be able to give us some guidance or direction, and it has to do with using the bus as a mode of transportation. In Quispamsis, we're having challenges with ridership in order to get the numbers where we need them to be. And is there anything that your organization can help us with to increase ridership on our buses?
Yeah, that's a very complicated issue, actually. And it's comprised of several components. One is, of course, route optimization, ensuring that the routes meet the needs of the citizenry in the work, live, and play aspects of their lives. And of course, it's a regional system, so you're working with other communities as well in the provision of that service. I think that we've noted in the past some improvements that need to happen on routes just to be able to get across town in Quispamsis. The next thing I would ask would be looking at regionally parking fees, because parking charges often can encourage others to use those other modes of transportation. It's not an easy fix, and that's all I can really get into right now, but I know in our assessment tools, we do look at transit-related measures and transportation demand measures, and those would provide recommendations to the town of Quispamsis. In fact, I think there's some from our benchmark work, which I'm presenting to your committee so shortly.
Thank you very much. And there is a motion, please, if somebody wouldn't mind reading that. Councillor Donovan.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'd move that Mr. Oldfield be thanked for his presentation, and that the information be forwarded to the Climate Change Committee, who will be working with Quest on the Accelerating Smart Energy Communities project.
It's been moved by Councillor Donovan, seconded by Councillor Luck. On the question, seeing there are none, please vote now. Motion carried 7-0. Thank you very much to Mr. Oldfield, and we'll look forward to our next meeting with him, moving this file forward. Next, we have the budgeting overview presentation with the town treasurer, Krista Brandon.
Thank you, Your Worship. So I'm just going to call this kind of Municipal Finance 101, just for everyone, for the new and for the returning counselors. I get excited about it, but that's okay. So local government finances. So in essence, our municipality is a business, and it financially operates two separate businesses, one being our general and one being our utility services. For our water and sewer utility services, those are funded via user fees. So that's where our sewer rates are there, as well as our utility rates, our water consumption rates as well. So those are all funded by the users who use that service. Our general services are funded primarily through the property taxes, as well as we do have user fees for our recreation facilities, as well as we have some other kind of user services as far as building permits. So all of that resides within our general kind of fund. And I'm just going to be going through this handout here that we kind of updated for you. This comes from the Department of Local Government. They haven't updated it in a number of years, but we did take the time to go through it and update it with the new relevant local governance sections. So just so everyone knows kind of where I'm kind of going through. So as a municipality, we prepare annual operating budgets, and we also prepare annual or a 5-year capital budget with only the funding for the first year provided. For our general fund, our revenue sources, again, include property taxes, the unconditional grant, and other kind of non-tax revenues, such as, like I've mentioned, the building permits, surplus from prior years, our rent fees, grants. We also, do receive grants from different levels of government. But mainly for us, it's through our warrant. So the warrant is what we need to fund our organization. So the warrant, in essence, equals the total expenditures less our non-tax revenue, so our user fees, and less our unconditional grant. That is equal to our warrant. The tax rate, which again is a very important piece of municipal finance. So the tax rate, in essence, is the tax base. So that's the assessment kind of value of the property, divided by every $100 worth of assessment equals our tax rate. The tax base is where the value of the properties. That's done at the provincial level through the assessment branch, and they provide us that information in, typically now it's October, so that we can then prepare our budget and provide the province with our tax rate. The unconditional grant is funding that's provided to us under the Community Funding Act, and it is to assist communities across the province and to, in essence, equalize a lot of the provincial tax revenue that comes through the province. For our utility fund, our revenue sources, like I've said, are supported by user fees. And so it's very important that we understand and manage our user fees so that our utility fund can support the expenses that are required to run such an endeavor. Utility for us includes water as well as sewer. So we also have, like I mentioned, the capital budgets. So a capital budget is kind of a more long-term financial plan. That's where we will, present all of our projects, large capital items that we need to have to be able to provide all of the services that we provide as a municipality. You'll see some of our fleet charges there. You'll see pieces of equipment that we need, our facilities such as Town Hall, the beach house, those types of things, Qplex, those are all, we're funded through our capital fund budget. And we go through that every year. Council approves the 1-year plan, but we do provide a 5-year plan that is also tied to our asset management plan, which is a very big priority for our municipality. So we also have reserve funds. So we have a variety of reserve funds, but typically a municipality would have a general operating reserve fund, a capital reserve fund, a utility operating reserve fund, and a utility capital reserve fund. And there are requirements for what we can use those different funds for. Operating funds need to be used just for operations. And for the general operating fund, it can only be 5% of the total expenditures that were budgeted in the municipality's operating fund for the previous year. So ours is about 1.2 million would be kind of our maximum, and we're pretty close to that right now. Capital, there is no limit on the capital reserve. And again, our reserve funds we use to fund a lot of the bigger ticket items so that we don't potentially have to borrow as much as well. We can borrow, so there is a municipal borrowing department where we can go and apply to get the debentures for big ticket items, which will then spread the costs over, in essence, the life of the asset. So it's kind of, again, in alignment with asset management. We're paying for something over the life of the asset. So there are many people kind of in the organization that are involved in municipal budgeting, municipal finance. So myself, all of the department heads, directors, the CAO, the whole management team, our finance department, almost everyone in the organization has a piece, whether it's putting in their payroll or an expense item for work boots, or, there a lot of the finances touch a lot of different people within the organization. We also have our finance committee, and so for this council, this will be our first finance committee meeting this week. So finance committee helps to provide some direction for the budgeting process, but everything always comes back to council as a whole for any of the decisions. But it is nice to get some kind of direction at different points in time. And finance committee also reviews our audited financial statements with our external auditor once a year, once the audit is done. So it is a key part to our organization. So some of our budgeting timeline. So we've already approved our budget schedule for the 2022 budget. In the booklet here, there's kind of a guide to what a sample operating budget timeline would be. But I will say that our staff are already working on the budget. They have been working on the budget for probably the last month. It is a big part of a lot of the managers, directors' jobs to be able to do. We do start it now in July, and we will be finished by the middle of November. So it is a large chunk of time for us. And then what we do after the end, when the budget is prepared, we will go through and produce a report for the province, which is kind of a line-by-line item of our budget that then gets consolidated with the provincial government. They will approve it for us, and as a municipality, we have to have a balanced budget. We are one of the only levels of government that needs to have a fully balanced budget. So our revenues must equal our expenses. We have no choice about that. That is how municipal finance works. So at the end of the year, we will do some projections based on the analysis of where we are. We typically do this in November and report back to council in December. And so you'll see requests for reserve transfers. So that's where we'll deal with projects that may have carry forwards that we weren't able to complete, that we want to make sure that we've put that money aside to fund it for when it will be complete. We'll look at estimating where we anticipate we're going to be, and we do all of those transfers into the year based on our best estimate. So a lot of analysis, forecasting work goes involved with it, so that by the time we actually do the year end, which won't really happen until March or so of the next year, that we've been able to diligently review our finances, transfer money into reserve that we need to, and then have hopefully a small surplus carry forward that then gets brought into the financials 2 years down the line. So if we end the year in 2021, let's say with a $20,000 surplus, we'll have that $20,000 come in 2023 to offset some of the revenue pieces. So it gets brought in. If you had a deficit, it would be the same thing. And that, in essence, is Finance 101.
Thank you very much, Ms. Brandon. And I will open, and I know it's a lot of work, and I know you've been working hard, but I know that you also love working with numbers, so good for you. We're very happy that you enjoy that. I'm going to go to Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you, Ms. Brandon. I know this is like Christmas for you. It's the most wonderful time of the year, you always tell me. So thank you for the explanation. I mean, I've been here this is my third term now, but by having this set out prior to, for all the new councillors, I find it quite useful, because I always had those questions. Why can't I move this just over to utility or to water, et cetera? So thank you very much. And I know you've started in July, and we're going to meet as a finance committee this Thursday morning. So the process is continued. So thank you very much. Look forward to it. And as we'll all see, the budget is a big thing, and also we hold it on a Saturday as well, so everything's live streamed and people can come in and people will see the budgets. It's all 100% transparent. You see everything that's there. So thank you very much for all your work, and we'll chat on Thursday.
Deputy Mayor Schreier.
Thank you for your presentation. I'm ready to put a motion forward. That Ms. Brandon be thanked for her presentation and the information be received and filed.
It's been moved by Deputy Mayor Schreier, seconded by Councillor Donovan on the question. If anyone has any other comments or questions, seeing there are none, please vote now. Motion carried 7-0. At this time, I think we will take a 5-minute health break, and I will just have someone, should we move to have this break? So could I have somebody move that, please, that we take a thank you, Councillor Olson. So it's been moved by Councillor Olson, seconded by Councillor Donovan on the question. Please vote now. Motion carried, and we will meet back here at about 8:28. Thank you. so promptly. Because we have some very patient people who have been waiting this evening, I would respectfully ask council to move that we would move correspondence up to number 6, that we would move that to item 7. Item 6, okay, thank you. Could I have a motion, please, to return to open session?
Yes, Richard, I move that we return to open session.
And second to that, Councillor Luck. So it's been moved by Councillor Miller, seconded by Councillor Luck, that we return to open session. Could I please have a motion to move correspondence to number 6, please? Yep. Oh, sorry. Voting on the first motion to return to open session. All those in favor on the question? Please vote now. Motion's been carried 7-0. The next motion is to move item number 9 to place number 6 on our agenda. Items A, B, and C. So we're moving 9, A, B, and C to item 6. So it's been moved by Councillor Beth Thompson, and it's been seconded by Deputy Mayor Schreier. On the question, all those in favor, please vote now. Motion carried 7-0. So we will move now to Mr. Richard Burrow. Would you please come to the podium? Give your name and address, please, for the clerk. Welcome.
And you will notice that this letter falls into 2 categories. One is the consultant and where they fell down, and that's a problem we cannot readdress because that's a problem from the last council. The second part is my proposal, and my proposal is my proposal. There can be many modifications made to it, but all of them must be totally transparent with no input from council, no direction from council, or no direction from staff. So I'll give you an example. When the consultant was hired last time, was he given directions to take the salary to the market median? Or did he do it on his own? And he, meaning, I don't know if it's a he or she, but did they do it on their own? If council or staff or whoever hired them said, take the salary to the market median, that's interference. It's no longer transparent. Another issue, in the past, once the consultant comes back and makes a recommendation, council votes on that recommendation. By voting on it, it is no longer transparent. Several councillors from the last council are on this council, and by voting the pay raise, they in effect gave themselves a pay raise. That's not transparent. I noticed the consultant said they consulted, or they looked at 12 communities similar to Quispamsis. If you look around the Maritimes, how many communities our size are bedroom communities for a city or a bigger community. There's Quispamsis, there's Riverview, possibly Dieppe, Sackville, New Brunswick. Now, if you start looking at communities our size, most of them are regional business centers, have a major industry, and have other services. Okay, if you take Yarmouth, Kentville, Bridgewater, Lunenburg, Truro, Amherst, Pictou, Antigonish, they are all different in the fact they have an industry as a base. Kentville has agriculture. Lunenburg has fisheries. Yarmouth has fisheries. Truro has the Stanfield plant. Pictou has the Michelin plant. So also all of those communities, being regional centers, have hospitals. They have things like a depot for the RCMP, even though they may have their own police service, or they may use the RCMP. So they are different. They're not the same as Quispamsis. But I don't know which communities I went looking. And the ones I could come up with that were similar to Quispamsis in the Maritimes were the 3 or 4 I mentioned. The other ones are all regional centers. In New Brunswick, you would have places like Bathurst, Edmundston, that sort of thing. But Miramichi, but some of those are cities. They come under a different classification than Quispamsis. Now, how they arrived at their determination. I've mentioned the instruction. If they used the major towns that I mentioned, in Nova Scotia, the average raise for 2019, which would be the basis of calculations for 2020 for Quispamsis, was 2 to 24%. Long ways from what we gave our counselors. I'm not talking dollar value. So I would rather see us go to something that has more input. The last one had no input from Quispamsis citizens. Edmundston had a task force, and they give their counselors raises. And it was forward-looking, starting in 2020 and up till 2024. The average was 2.5% per year. Nova Scotia, the average raises, or not average raises, yes, the average raises for all communities was 2 to 24%. The one that was 24% was Cape Breton Regional Council, and it wasn't transparent at all. They went behind closed doors and gave themselves a raise, according to the reporting. Didn't consult anybody else, not the citizens, not a consultant. So I guess I'm down to 4 minutes. So that part I want to see changed. I'll make one more comment about the effect of the last raise. Quispamsis pays its mayor, and I'm picking on you. You're the mayor, not you personally, I'm not worried about, but the position pays its mayor $13,628 more than Riverview, another bedroom community. And Riverview has approximately 1,000 more people. Okay, so you can see I don't like the consulting method. I think you should go to a totally transparent method. I have proposed it in my letter, and it has 6 points. The 6 points all do things like take inflation into consideration, both national and provincial. OAS CPP adjusts according to national inflation. The wages, Quispamsis pays its people, and I divide it into three parts because some of them are negotiated and some aren't. I put in there the provincial inflation rate. And basically, it's transparent. Council does not see it, does not, and I say, if you go forward, you don't have to approve it every year. It just happens automatically. I gave a date, why a particular time. It gives whoever does the calculation 6 months between the end of the year and when they award the pay raise. The pay raise is annual. It stops the shock of every 4 years getting a big, huge raise. And I guess I'm down to the point in my time that there's two things I want to make. The raise should be in-house, made in Quispamsis. Edmundston has hired a task force. Charlottetown appointed a commission of citizens. They are the ones. Now, we and a lot of places hire a consultant and they dodge out from under and say, oh, it's transparent. It's not transparent. You hired them. You may or may not give them instructions. You approve what they say. So it's not totally transparent. My proposal, or one similar, would be transparent. I did not include the police or the fire department because Rothsay has an input. It's not only Quispamsis. And usually in those cases, an arbitrator makes the final decision because in a lot of cases, because police and fire can't strike, they know that an arbitrator will be fair or overly fair. The other point, we are now have a salary that the consultant felt was fair. It's a good starting point to initiate my proposal. And it is annual. Council has no input into it. It just happens. And council just makes a motion to put this in place, and it'll go on until whatever. My time is up, so I thank you very much for putting up with me. I guess that's the way to do it. And I hope you don't just receive and file this. I hope some action is done to make this ongoing in-house, or not, in Quispamsis, involving Quispamsis citizens, and making it at a wage, your wage increases would be similar to what other people in Quispam. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your opinion, Mr. Burrell. And I see that we have Councillor Miller, perhaps with a question or a motion.
Thank you, Worship. Thank you for the presentation. I'm just going to make a few comments as well because you had made some, so I'm just going to state. So I've been here for 9 years. It's my 10th year. Every year, we don't vote on the wages every year. It's CPI goes in. This is the first year in the 9 years that we did vote on it. As far as transparency, it was in the papers. All the results were there. We had lots of feedback. We never hid behind a closed door. And when you say that, and I'm speaking because I'm one of the councillors that was here, when I voted on my own pay raise, I did vote yes for this, but it wasn't until the new council got voted in. So I don't know who's going to be here and who's not. Just let me finish. Yeah. Who's going to be here, who's not. So that's where that was. So I just wanted to let you know on that. When you talk, and you were right about Riverview. Like I did all the research. Ignore the consultant. I did also all my research on all the different communities around. Riverview is the lowest by far. If you talk about the Francophone communities, all Francophone communities, because I have it right here in front of me, starting January 1st, the mayor gets $66,625. The deputy mayor gets $29,980. The councillors get $26,650. But also what you talked about for the mayor, she did get a raise of $13,000, but you didn't talk about the expenses got cut by $7,800. So it's not. I'm not here to debate. I'm just saying that these are just some things that happen. you talk about a raise. Well, in 2020, this council took a 0% raise. In the 9 years I've been here, the average increase has been about 1.6. So I don't disagree with your comments, and I fully support your opinion. But when we did vote for 50% as a council, so you're correct. We did vote that we weren't told to do whatever. We put our salaries at 50%. We also put our expenses at 50%. So what that meant is the salaries actually went up, the expenses actually went down. What people don't talk about or hear about, we also used to have allowances for internet and everything else. We took all that away. Nobody talks about
You
that.
also had a tax break on your salaries that was eliminated by the federal government.
That's correct.
It was brought in the 1950s with the idea part of councillor's salary was spent for expenses, and that wasn't fair. So that's why the big raise in 2019 in Nova Scotia.
Yes, but we're talking about this one right now. So again, you're right, Riverview is the lowest, but we are at the 50% centile. And again, I just wanted to but discuss that, but also when you talk about transparency, we do everything in open. Everybody could see that. And I can send you a copy. You did talk about Riverview. I also have everything that I could find about, Fredericton, Moncton, they get retirement benefits. We don't have a lot of things. We get different days, and that's fine. I respect your opinion, but I just wanted to contradict the transparency and that I voted for the raise for the next
I'm one of
council.
them, yes.
And also that I just wanted to let you know that we don't vote every year. We do have a system in place that the CPI goes through, and we won't be voting every year on our raises.
So, but what I'm saying, my proposal eliminates all possibility of council interference. And I'm not saying you are, but I'm saying the possibility's there. You don't have to vote on it. It just falls in my proposal, every June the 1st. And it now has Quispamsis citizen input, which the consultant did not apparently have Quispamsis input. Whereas Edmundston, Charlottetown, they appointed commissions of citizens. So, and this can go on.
Councillor
forever.
Thompson, thank you, sir.
Yes, Your Worship. Just, I believe the time is up.
It has been for a while.
Yeah.
But it's
Would you please make a motion, Councillor Thompson?
Yes, Your Worship. I would move that we thank Mr. Burrow for his comments and concerns concerning council compensation and the background information that was presented to council at the March 16th, 2021 regular meeting on this topic be issued to Mr. Burrow for information purposes, and his letter be received and filed.
It's been moved by Councillor Thompson and seconded by Councillor Olson on the question. Councillor Olson, did you have a question on this? No? Please vote now. Mr. Burrow. Mr. Derek May, request to use Meanans Cove Park boat launch Monday, August 24th, 2021 for John Wood Foundation fundraising event, jet ski rentals, one-day event to rent out jet skis. Good evening, welcome.
Good evening, Derek May from 17 Ferry Road in Somerville. First and foremost, I just thank you for your time and seeing me out here. You have a beautiful community and a fine-looking group, I must say. Thanks. So I'm trying to curry favor if you haven't picked that up. So I'm a veteran of the Canadian Armed Forces. I grew up in St. John, New Brunswick. I recently moved back to the Somerville area. And when veterans have a lot of time on their hands, they get bored. So I got this crazy idea in my head to walk 500 miles for the John Wood Foundation, a man I never met. John Wood has Duchenne muscular dystrophy, so he has very limited mobility. He only can move his eyes and his tongue. And this guy was supposed to pass away at 16 years old. He's now 42, he's on a ventilator, and he has machines basically living for him. So I was motivated by this fella to do something for him. So this is where the Somerville 500 came into fruition. It's a Facebook group, basically, where I post videos and I do my walks. And I'm currently 426 miles in, and I started this thing on June 26th. Now, I'm not built for speed, okay? And it's been quite the endurance challenge, and it's been fueled by love and cinnamon rolls, actually. And I had an amazing offer from my friend Craig Duguay, who's a resident of Quispamsis. And he has the jet ski rental, which is called Thrill Seekers. And he said, if we could get permission from town council to use Meehan's Cove, we could advertise on the radio, and we could get a lot of people in the community out to do these 1 hour jet ski rentals and not have cause any trouble at the boat launch for people that want to use it. He usually sets up down at Rentforth, and I went out and I took a rip on one of these jet skis, and it's a lot of fun, but where we ran into issues was other people wanting to use in the boat launch. So we have 5 jet skis that are available to rent, but other people will have to use the boat launch. So we just don't want to cause any issues with the community. So we thought we'd come here and ask for permission before we went out and actually did it. So basically that's my presentation. So any questions?
Thank you very much for your presentation. I will go to the floor now for questions. Deputy Mayor Schreier first.
Yes, thank you for your presentation and your fortitude and your passion. It's quite inspiring to hear that story. I guess my question goes to the Director of Engineering or maybe Community Services. In my mind, if we were doing jet boats, they could actually be on the beach. They don't actually need to use the boat launch just to get them in initially, but then they would be on the beach. Where does the current, I've forgotten his name.
Oh, Craig.
Craig, where does he run the business out of?
Usually out of the Rentforth Wharf.
Oh, the Rentforth Wharf. Okay, so you're asking it to be at Meehan's Cove.
Exactly.
So is there any complications with this that the Director of Community Services can see?
I was wondering what the hours would be.
Typically, we'll do an 8-hour run from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. It's actually going to be on a Tuesday, not a Monday. So it's not going to be, a high traffic area, high traffic time. Craig needs to make money at his business. So like the weekends are pretty busy, but I don't think there's too many people boating on a Tuesday. Hopefully not.
Yeah, it's pretty busy. It's a really busy boat launch. And just on my way to work this morning, at 8 o'clock, there's several boats heading out to the boat launch. So my question would be, would it be exclusive, like you're requesting to actually close the boat launch from 8 till 4 on Tuesday?
We just want to utilize the area and let people know that we would be utilizing the area. And typically when we dock, it would be about a 15-minute turnaround between passengers. So it could be one guy gets on a jet ski, another guy goes, but there could be a possibility of overlap, and we don't want to, anger anybody. So,
would they be launching from the wharf or the beach?
From the wharf.
From the wharf.
But I think I would have to talk to Craig about that, and if we could launch from the beach, that'd be optimal. But if we have to utilize the wharf, that'd probably be the best bet as well.
Yeah. And does he know we have a swim area, a beach there, a swim area? So
right.
I just would have a little bit.
He's aware. I think he's utilized the area before.
Oh, has he? Okay.
He also has liability insurance. So
I saw that. So that would be my next question. Would be if I think council would, if they're going to permit this activity to take place and restrict that area, we would probably require a facility rental agreement and to be named as an additionally insured as part of that process. Normally, if a business is operating in our parks or beaches, as per our bylaw, they would need permission of council, which of course could happen this evening, but then we would need to be named as an additionally insured on the insurance. So we should have some documentation of that agreement via a facility rental agreement or something, if that's what council would like to do.
Well, certainly it would have to be referred to staff for that investigatory work. I'll go to next in the queue, and that would be Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Your Worship. Actually, my question was along the lines of Deputy Mayor Schreier, was feedback from our Director of Community Services, because I think that we'll have to leave it with them to see what is able and what we're able to do and if it's feasible. But you're also talking about less than 2 weeks from now. That's the
Actually, a week. So.
yeah.
Next week.
This Tuesday, yeah. Because I know in the past, again, this goes back prior council, but somebody had asked use it for the whole year, renting ski boats and or jet skis, and we didn't allow that for the whole summer. I mean, this is significantly different. We're talking about for a charity. You're talking about a one-day event, and you stated that it wouldn't interfere with the boats coming through because even though that's a free service that we provide, I mean, that's obviously a service that Quispamsis, we just fixed the wharf there and the docks there a few years ago. So I'm really interested in the Director of Community Service, and I really think we should leave it. Like, for me, I have no personal issues, but I don't know what it does internally for the town I don't know the process for all that kind of stuff, so.
Thank you, Councillor Miller. I'm going to go back to the Director of Community Services.
Your Worship, the first step would be permission from council. So in order for a business to operate in a park or beach as per our bylaw, they require the permission of the town. And I don't have that ability, so that's why when businesses are looking to operate in our facilities, they come here first. So in order for us to work out, I guess, those details, I would need to know, I guess council would need to decide this evening, if that, obviously, because it's a week away, that they would be interested in limiting access to the boat launch for that day and then give us permission. We can handle the details after that, but I guess that's the first step, I guess, for council to make that decision, that you want to have that business operate as per our bylaw on our park and on our beach. And then we can take it from there.
Thank you, Director of Community Services. I think there's still a couple more questions here, so. Councillor Luck.
Thank you, Your Worship. First, Mr. May, thank you for such a inspirational thing that you're doing as an occupational therapist. I think the John Wood Foundation and what their mandate is wonderful. My question is, again, I'm not familiar. I'm not a big boater. But with jet boats, couldn't you launch them from the dock and not even interfere with the boat launch at all, and then just have people come back to the dock? Like, I'm just wondering if there's actually even an issue in terms
just tying them up to the docking area. I'm not sure how the boat launch or the docks are utilized here. I know people like to come in, get off the boat, and head into town to buy something. So we just want to interfere with those people. So, I mean, it's minimal interference. I just don't want to make people angry. And plus, if we get permission, we can advertise on the radio. So.
Councillor Olson.
Thank you, Worship. Thanks for your presentation and your passion for the foundation. I've met him before, and so I'm familiar with John. I guess my question is much like Councillor Luck's. I would see you tying the Sea-Doos to the dock on the outward side of the launch pad. So, and leave 2 or 3 of them right there. And that all they do is they take it out and bring it back right in there. You're not even interfering there.
Right.
Now, if you had a big run on them, then if you had all 5 out at one time or something like that, that's fine. Then you could put them into the dock. But I mean, it's not practical to put them in, take them out every 15 minutes. I mean, that's just a waste of gas.
Well, for sure. We'd leave them tied up. It's just,
so, and then you can have your security people right there too, and supervising everything, and not a bunch of kids or anything hanging around them, interfering with them. I mean, not that they would, but just so they don't get into any mischief or have an accident or anything. Absolutely. But I think that would be something that might be able to be looked at in a positive way. But it would just be putting them in once and tying them up and then taking them from the dock and bringing them back to the same place on the dock. And, because you got a great water area there to supervise them. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Olson. Councillor Thompson, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you, Mr. May, for your presentation. And with that, I would move that council proceed with the, I guess, request of Mr. May on behalf of the John Wood Foundation, and that the details be worked out, I guess, pretty quick. And that would be my motion.
It's been moved by Councillor Thompson that that the town proceed with the request from Mr. May, and it's been seconded by Councillor Donovan. On the question, please vote now. Motion carried 7-0. Thank you very much, Mr. May.
Thank you very much.
Have a good rest of your evening.
Thank you. Beautiful
Next on the agenda, we have Sarah McCord, KVHS art teacher, proposed mini little art galleries collaboration project with KVHS. In attendance to expand upon this proposal is Sarah McCord. Okay, well, welcome. We're always interested to see what's going on in our local schools. Good. Welcome, Ms. McCord. Could you please state your address for the clerk?
Yes, so I'm Sarah McCord, and my home address is 10 Cobblestone Drive in Quispamsis.
Hi, my name's Avery Milliken. I'm a student at KVHS. Do I have to say my address?
Yes, please.
4 Milliken Drive.
4 Milliken Drive.
Thanks, Avery.
Thank
Okay,
you. Good evening.
Thank you so much, councillors. Mayor Libby O'Hara, for having us tonight. It's certainly been informative. I can't say I've been to a counselor, know really what goes on. So thank you for all that you do. There's certainly a variety of topics. I only have one slide. I believe it's up there. I can't promise my presentation will be great, but the idea is great. Okay? So if you have questions at the end, please don't hesitate to ask them because I have scratch notes and I might forget something. Okay, so essentially on the screen is an example of a mini little art gallery. You can call it a tiny free art gallery. It's not kind of an official thing.
what a great opportunity to get some of our senior members of our community involved as well, because I'm sure they would
great
love
idea.
something like
Yeah.
that. So anyway, if you're thinking of other locations, that might be something. But I would like to kind of find out logistically if if it's something that we can do, because again, it's still, you know, putting it in a hole and making sure it stays upright and all that stuff. So, but thank you. It's a great idea.
Thank you, Councillor Luck. Director of Community Services, Ms.
We'd
Purton-Dixon.
be happy to work with her and the school and help out with this project.
Awesome. We do have a shop class, you know, that can build it and we'll
Okay.
design it. But yeah, we
I
would need
guess
your
my
help
only
for
question would be regarding any kind of, if there is vandalism or maintenance,
Yeah.
that we just develop a relationship where we could give you a call and
Yeah.
let you know if something's happened, similar to what we already do at the library. And we've got it, we put it out and we take it down and they stock it. So it would be very much
Yeah.
the same relationship, I would think.
And I thought about too, like, I think it's a great idea to start with 4 and have lots, but if it kind of fizzles out and then we pare it down to just one main one after, that would be fine. Like if one gets wrecked or something, hopefully that doesn't happen, but
okay.
I don't know.
Thank you, Ms. Purton-Dixon. I'll go now to Councillor Noah Donovan.
I just wanted to say thank you so much to the both of you for coming in to present to us. You both did a really good job, and I really appreciate the props. I wish we got to see more props. It doesn't happen often, but it certainly made my council night a little bit more exciting. And Mrs. McCord was actually a teacher of mine at KVHS, so I'm super excited to be able to see you again. And it's amazing. It's an amazing thing to see students using their imagination and creative skills to help better our community. I am fully in support of this, and you know, although I can't speak for everyone, I do have a very strong feeling that my fellow councillors will be as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Donovan. Deputy Mayor Schreier.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you for your patience tonight and hanging in there with us. We're working all night. When I read this, I thought, what a wonderful idea. I love art. I absolutely love it. I'm not allowed to buy anymore because I have no walls left. So to be able to share art with the community is a wonderful thing. And especially saying, if you need it, if you absolutely love it, take it. And I do believe that there's opportunities there for partnerships with maybe, as Councillor Luck had mentioned, with Shanix and with Park Kingsway. I know that they would absolutely love those little boxes, but not just them. There's daycares, early learning centers, everyone can get it. You know, when I go on our paths or go on our trails and you see the little rocks painted, it just makes you laugh and smile. You go, oh, there's a rock. What's that one say?
There's a little box in this one at the bottom you can't see, and it has canvases that you can just take to create art.
No, I'm fully in support of the idea, and I know that our Director of Community Services, Mrs. Dana Purton-Dixon, will work really well with you to make sure this happens. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Councillor Bigger.
Thank you, Your Worship. I think you're headed for the America's Got Talent golden buzzer here with the response you're getting. Are any of these your works, Avery?
Yeah.
That's awesome. I just want, there's really nothing that I need to add because everybody is providing such great feedback here, except I just wanted to thank you for coming and sharing your art with us. And it's just marvelous to see. I'm a person who tries to make a living off of the art of music, and I just think it's fantastic to see young people take community engagement seriously like that and want to be able to share. As a musician, when I was starting out with that, the hardest thing to find was a platform to be able to sort of express, out the artistic creation that I was vibing with the music. And so I love your DIY solution here. And take that, little libraries. We can do it too, right? And they'll have a cage match over it, maybe. But no, I just think it's fantastic. And I really just want to applaud you for being so interested to share and to try to enrich people's lives with what you're creating. And just keep going with that. That's so fantastic. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Councillor Baker. And now we'll go to Councillor Miller.
Thank you very much. Just echoing what everybody else says, my kids are out of KVHS now, and I went there long ago. But I'm always amazed when you go there, and I'd walk down the halls and you'd see all the art that's there. So I think this is a fabulous way of showcasing it throughout the community. I'm a little bit worried about vandalism, to be quite frank. So just off the top of my head, maybe even have a box at the library, maybe at the town hall, or maybe some businesses as well, just to, I mean, I think you could put them out at different places as well, but it's just, leaving something overnight, not so sure, but I think it's a fabulous idea, and I don't know if 4 is the right number or more is the right number. But I think it's great for the students so they can showcase their ability, because if you don't have a child or in KVHS or any of the other schools, sometimes you're not aware of what's there, right? And you may not reach other people. So I think it's a fabulous idea. I echo Councillor Luck's comment, and wherever you could get it, whether it's businesses, in town facilities, but I mean, you want people to see it. That's the big thing, and maybe it's to the farmers market idea. You come down for the farmers market, and have it set up for the farmers market, things like that. But no, I think it's great, and maybe in that little box, like I looked at the one from Sackville, it had a little box attached at the bottom, so I don't know if that was for money or just.
No. It just had like canvases.
Oh, it's
to
canvas.
take
Okay,
out
I couldn't.
canvases or pieces
I
of
couldn't read
paper
what
that
that was.
yeah.
So, but anyways, I think it's a great idea. So I fully support it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Miller. And Councillor Olson.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your presentation, the both of you. Very well done and very interesting too. Like Councillor Miller, my 4 kids are through KV, and my last granddaughter's in there and starting grade 12 in September. But anyway, I think it's a great idea, and it's a great opportunity to have another first for Quispamsis, because we're very proud of our community, and we've supported and promoted a lot of interesting ideas, and this is special. I can see a lot of potential for this, and with 120 students, to just let them loose and have their ideas come forward, and that I think would just be great. And Dana Dixon will work well with you, and I think we'll all be supportive of your efforts. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Olson. I'm looking for a motion. Councillor Donovan?
Oh, I just had a quick question, but I'll read the motion right after I'm done. Not really a question, kind of a comment. I can't wait till you get those up, because I guarantee that I'll be your first customer there. I kind of need some artwork for the back here because it's a little bit boring and bleak. Green is not my color, but yeah, so with that, I will read the motion here if I can find it. So the motion is that I would present is that Ms. McCord be thanked for presenting her proposed mini little art galleries collaboration project with KVHS, and the proposal be referred to the Community Services Director to review potential location options that could accommodate that request. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Donovan. So it's been moved by Councillor Donovan, seconded by Deputy Mayor Schreier. On the question, please vote now. Appreciate it.
Do you want to put it all in the bag? I'll just write this down. Thank you.
We will return to item number 7. Minutes of previous meeting, July 20th, 2021, regular meeting. There's a motion. Councillor Donovan.
Yes, Your Worship, I'd move that the minutes of the July 20th, 2021 regular meeting be approved as prepared.
Motion's The motion's been moved by Councillor Donovan. It's been seconded by Councillor Thompson. On the question, please vote now. Business. Item 8A, May 4th, 21, update on 48 Pettingill Road, online plant and garden store at apiary operation and apiary operation. Staff report from Municipal Planning Officer. Mr. Logier, please.
Your Worship, as Mr. Colburn's report identifies, we did go through a long and convoluted process to get some direction from the province with regards to apiaries and their jurisdiction. We actually had a very good cooperation from the property owner, who provided us with his contact, the regional inspector, and to come to find out, I believe there's about a dozen properties in the community that the inspector would inspect under the provincial regulations. So on two fronts we're dealing with on this particular issue. If we look at the development officer's correspondence, we're looking at the potential for council to enact provisions within our municipal bylaws to regulate or legislate the operations of apiarists, beehives within the community. If we look at something similar currently, for example, home-based chickens, backyard coops, are permitted in the town through an application to the Planning Advisory Committee. So there's a defined process for that, where they actually can make an application and have certain conditions that are applied. So with the apiarist, with beehives, home beehives, we would be looking at council's direction to say, is this something that they want to see first? If so, do we want to look at what generally happens in other communities and we can use that as a template, or do we want to establish our own guidelines to say, okay, we only want to have 2, 4, 6, whatever hives? So that's the first component of the municipal planning officer's correspondence. The second component with regards to the operations of the business, the plant business, as you can see in the additional correspondence from the property owner, and I think we discussed previously, the operation has actually exceeded his expectations, and most lately his capacity, in that it was essentially a hobby that he had, and he was selling surplus material. And while he advises people to come off the street, he recognizes that there is a hazard there, which staff and council members have pointed out as well. And they are looking to bring this back to what they can manage, and in doing so would come back to the town with an application either to the planning committee for a home-based business, or I would imagine they would re-examine to say, do we want to go through any sort of a formal rezoning process? So they've been advised with a cease and desist. They've pulled their material back away from the roadway. They operate under an honor system most of the time because they have main occupations away from the property. So they're very receptive to the concerns that we brought forward. So from a staff perspective, what I guess we are looking for from council is the level of enforcement that you wish to see on the two fronts. First being the legislation with regards to beehives and the domestic beehives in the community. And secondly, if the action that's being proposed by the business owner is satisfactory at this time, and we will provide you with updates as he makes the appropriate application. So those are the two components that he brought forward in his correspondence. So if council has any questions or comments, that would be great.
Thank you, Mr. Logier. We have Deputy Mayor Schreier.
Thank you, Your Worship. On the second, the owner is indicating that they're going to scale back. So I'm fine with that. And if they decide that they want to come forward with, in the spring of next year, with a home-based application, then that's fine. So my understanding is right now they're not coming forward with the application, and that they will cease selling.
I believe whatever material they have not going to be bringing in. They're just they've got in and just let it go. So I don't think they're going to actively promote the business and ramp it up. Apparently, they're just scaling it back and saying we're going to reconfigure.
Okay, and on the first one, beehives or bylaw is I'm not sure why we would have to have a bylaw on that. It seems to me that the province has jurisdiction over it, the majority of it, and I just don't want to see us create another bylaw if it's not necessary at this point. So I just sort of need your thoughts on that.
Sure thing. The bylaw essentially, the province has the ultimate jurisdiction, but they will defer land use provisions to the communities, the way they do with their zoning bylaws. They can say you can have apartment buildings in your town. You can decide, but you decide how high, how big, whatever. So that's the same type of jurisdiction that they have. They say yes, an individual within the province of New Brunswick can operate a beehives up to 50, whatever it is, but you have to follow whatever community you live in, whatever the restrictions that they put in place. So, for example, going back to the zoning bylaw, you say you can build a garage. It has to be 5 feet from your property line. You're only allowed 2 outbuildings on your property. So this type of the bylaw that we would be seeking from direction from council is, are we okay with small scale hive operations? Normally, they recommend the minimum of 2 hives if you're going to do this, because you can judge the health of your hive one against the other. And then, is there a maximum? So, in this particular situation, I believe that they have 10. I know that there are other locations in the community that they have about 40 or so. So would we say, if you're in the urban zone, the rural, the residential zone where your homes are 100-foot lots, you're allowed 2 hives max. But if you're in the rural zone where you have an acre or more, you could have 20 hives. So those are the types of things that the province will defer to the local communities, as we control the land use component. And then that would be things like setback. They should have a cleansing pool immediately by the hive. Those types of things that we would with land use items.
Thank you. I'll go to Councillor Luck, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. So I have, I guess, 2 points. The first question I would have is based on the correspondence as part of our pre-reading. It sounded like the residents were still questioning perhaps having maybe like a, like a plant sale a few times per year.
They would have to come back to, they would identify, we want to have a spring sale and a fall sale. They would come to PAC, for example, for temporary use.
Okay. Okay. And I was wondering really, I didn't know in terms of just even how that would compare to just someone deciding I'm having a yard sale. So anyway, that would be just one thing I was thinking about, because if they're going away from the retail. And then in terms of the bees, I personally think to be proactive, because of all the bee poop and what we've got into over the last few months, I would like to see us have a bylaw based on the correspondence and the information that the department has gathered for us. I do think, as per Mr. Lozier's comments, we need to have some type of regulations, because, that's how we got into this mess. And then we went to the province and they said, well, yes, the bees are healthy, but they can fly wherever they want because we can't control it. So, a few things I would like to see is, to your point, a number of hives, where they should be located on the property, the minimum size of a lot, or if it's, a certain size, you can only have so many. Also being proactive in talking about how these bees bathe or cleanse, I guess. So again, making sure that if you're going to have bees, the bylaw should also be including things like, the shallow water features or the bird baths. And then also, I think in the pre-work they were talking about, looking at what are, maybe there's already best practices out there, so let's not reinvent the wheel. Legal ramifications for doing this. And the lastly is, I guess, because we're kind of, the cow is already out of the barn. So also looking at potentially grandfathering in the people that already have bees, to be fair, because, they were doing this kind of, in the laws that were, that's a better analogy. So again, maybe looking at, as of this date, moving forward. So then that way it doesn't penalize our residents that have been, playing by the law in terms of, having beekeeping on their property. So, but I am happy to read that the situation's getting slightly better for the residents that brought it to our attention, and hopefully next year it will be, addressed even more so. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Luck.
And with respect to the last comment about the grandfathering in, generally that's how our bylaws will end up being. We can't retroactively penalize somebody, and you've hit the nail on the head. It would be, here's what the bylaws are now. As long as you fall within, you stay where you're at. You can't get any bigger. You have to stay where you're at, but you can get smaller to meet the bylaws. So that's how, you're right on. That's with that comment.
Thank you, Mr. Loche. Next is Councillor Bigger.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, I would also really support a bylaw on this. I think that at the end of everything, we've this long journey of this issue that has seemed almost ridiculous at times, but of course not if you're living near this, activity, and your cars are getting covered with this stuff, and your patio furniture and your windows and everything. It seems like at the very least we should be able to develop something that allows us to, the purpose of bylaws are complaint driven, generally speaking, right? By and large. So there's nothing unusual about a bylaw being the result of this situation, I think, logically speaking. And I think that we've learned that the province is not really going to step in by virtue of the Provincial Apiary Act. That really is moot on legislation that would, or bylaw enforcement that would mitigate the problem. And so I think it just seems like that's the right thing to do now. It's the way we mitigate and control, duplicating this issue. And I mean, yes, Ms. Moore and Ms. Smith say in their little response letter, I thought they were exceedingly gracious and patient to say that they were staying silent just to give us ample time to go ahead with it. Shows that they're very good people and patient. But they're not really acquiescing that the problem with the spring cleanse is the only problem. I mean, it's still a problem, for them. And so I just don't want to see it continue. And so I just want to say I'm fully in favor of developing some kind of a bylaw. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bigger. Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Your Worship. I too am supportive, but I guess I have a question that I don't know if we know the answer to yet, is for the cleansing ponds that are required, how big can they be? Can it be something as simple as a large mini pool that they have to, and if that's the case, it's quite simple, because what I read there anyways, you need them to get there right away when they start the spring, so they continue going there versus doing what's happened now. So hopefully it's just, and you're nodding your head, so it could be something simple like that.
Pool with rocks in it, so that that they have something to rest on and go. Honestly, last week I had a bee in my yard. I was working in the yard, or 3 weeks ago before I went on vacation, and there's a big giant honeybee, and you picked it up, put it on the ground, and had a thing of water, and it just went to the water, took a couple of drinks, and off it went. So as long as they can walk, revive themselves, cleanse, and off they go. That's discussion with Mr. Colburn. That's what they're looking at. So it doesn't have to be a significant feature that in itself requires a building permit, so to speak. It's something that can be done as part of that feature.
Thank you, Councillor Miller. Thank you, Director of Engineering. And we will now go to Deputy Mayor Schreier.
Yes, Your Worship, I'm just wondering if we need a motion? Yes, we do. Okay, so my motion would be that council provide staff with direction on drafting of bylaw amendments regarding the beekeeping in the town of Quispamsis.
It's been moved by Deputy Mayor Schreier, and it is seconded by Councillor Olson.
Thank you, Worship.
Just 1 second.
Suggest if the clerk has Councillor Luck's comments, and just say, and use those as the sort of the guiding principle. And to Councillor Bigger's comment, I believe, about our best practices, we're notorious for going to other communities and seeing what they do, so it helps us do some best practices background. So.
Okay, so to include Councillor Luck and Councillor Bigger's recommendations, And Councillor Olson, I think you had something you wanted to add on the question? First of all, are you
Yes.
seconding the motion?
What's that?
Are you seconding the
Yes, I
motion?
am. I want
So
to
it's
speak on the
been-
motion.
It's been moved by Deputy Mayor Schreier, seconded by Councillor Olson on the question.
Okay, thank you. I agree with having a bylaw 100%. I think that one of the things that should be looked at through to Mr. Logier is whether rather than just carte blanche grandfather that location, is there any ability to analyze the location of those hives within that property to see if that is the best location for it? It mentions in the write-up there that sometimes there's another better location, but I don't know if you've got any idea on that or not, but that was the only thing I was thinking of.
Suggest, Your Worship, that we would, in the best practices, if there's a setback that could be, we could probably contact any existing properties and say, you know, you're 2 feet from your line. We're going to recommend 10. Is there a possibility that you can move it 10 feet or to the rear of the property instead of the side? And we can, if we know properties, we can make that contact. But again, to the point about grandfathering, sometimes it's like a garage is too close to the property line, even though everything else is 10 feet away, you can't get that garage moved. So we have to be able to treat the bylaws the same way. But again, that's a good point that we can look at a best practice and then anybody that we're aware of, encourage them to follow those best practices willingly and that make that as part of like a PR or social campaign or whatever.
Thank you. Councillor Donovan, did you have something on the question? Councillor Donovan.
Thank you, Your Worship. I have a question through you to the Director of Engineering and Works. So my question would be, in an effort not to have or, create 40 different bylaws, would it be possible for the town to have an overall all-encompassing agricultural bylaw that, deals with chickens and bees and, if somebody wants to have goats, could you not just put it all in one big bylaw instead of having a different bylaw for each? Does that make sense?
It does make sense. However, the land use bylaws are based on the land zones. So we would have to identify as I mentioned earlier, in a rural zone, you can do this, in a residential zone, you can do this. So we have to make the conditions applicable to each zone. So while it may seem repetitive, it would probably be the same types of guidance principles or setbacks or whatever, but it would have to be identified in each specific zone for that to occur. Alternatively, the other thing that we've done is if we don't want to if we want to make everybody the same, sometimes we can do that. But with this one, this might be a little bit, if you've got something with 40 acres, I don't think it's the same, would apply to somebody who's got 2 acres or half an acre. So that's why we do it that way. But if there are provisions that we can do unilaterally under one big bylaw, we try to do that.
Thank you. And Councillor Luck.
Thank you, Your Worship. I do have another question for Mr. Lozier. When you were speaking with the province in regards to the current situation with the bee poop, it seemed like they were saying that really to get the bees to learn to cleanse closer, ideally, it almost seems like their path now is Ritchie Lake, so they're crossing over these, poor people's property. Did they give any suggestions on how they can retrain the bees to kind of poop in their own yard?
So the thing to remember is that the bees are coming out after hibernation. So they're going to go, if the first thing they see, it's like a gas, the first truck stop they see is that one, they'll go to that first truck stop. They're used to that. They know their hive is back, so they go back and forth. So I'm not if it's so much training, it's out of convenience what they see. So that's where it goes to the proper design of these things, is my understanding. I'm not a bee expert by any stretch of the imagination. But so that's the direction or the indication that we've received, is that if it's convenient, they're going to take advantage of it, and then everybody else will take advantage of it.
Will the residents that own the bees that we have the current issue with? Are they planning on doing a kitty? Oh, okay. Just because right now, unfortunately,
Yeah.
it's all the issue of the residents there.
And as well, the bees that have, like you said, they've got a path that they're following. That this is a like a train. If it's, you to use your quote, the training thing, it's going to be spring of the year when they're brand new, coming out of sleep. Rub their eyes, stretch their bee wings, and they fly to the water while they come back.
Thank you. So the motion's been moved by Deputy Mayor Schreier and seconded by Councillor Olson on the question. Please vote now.
We we take this opportunity to create scenic roads and provide plans for upgrades that enhance and maintain the rich history of certain roads within the town of Quispamsis. Scenic roads can be recognized for quality and quantity of natural, cultural heritage and recreational features that contribute to their scenic value. I did do a little bit of some research, and I was quite taken by the report from the municipality of Waterloo, Ontario. And they state in their document that the function of transportation corridors is shifting from being a pure capacity conduit for motor vehicles to serving as part of the community identity and fabric. The understanding of the road as a place and the contributing element in the character of the surroundings provides the foundation for the planning and development and conversation of special character streets and scenic roads. So I looked at our town and I said, and I used 3 examples. One was the Gondola Point Road, one was the Cedar Grove Road, and Model Farm Road. And the reason I use those 3 examples is because each one of them leads to a recreational facility. One being Gondola Point Beach, the other one we have Ritchie Lake, and Model Farm Road, of course, to Means Cove Beach. Other items that I looked at were cultural identity. We know that Ritchie Lake means, Quispamsis means little lake, and they refer to Ritchie Lake as that being, was it Mi'kmaq? I can't remember which one it was. Mi'kmaq? Meaning Ritchie Lake, yes, thank you. And Cannabicase is the basin where we are in Quispamsis, because it's referred to as a river, but actually it's a basin. And it also has an indigenous meaning Little Long Bay. So both the Gondola Point Road, Gondola Point Beach, plus Model Farm Road have the Cannabicase River there. So when I started checking off, saying, well, what would the criteria be for a scenic route, that was just some of my ideas. I'm not saying that they're the ideas. I'm just saying that it was exploring in my mind what I would think of as ideas. Of course, the Gondola Point Road is already been recognized in our active transportation file. I believe the Model Farm Road has as well. All those areas connect to some type of trail system. Ritchie Lake, especially, is Little Lake in the Woods, is the central part of the historic Quispamsis. Quispam was sort of built around Ritchie Lake. So when I looked at that, I thought, if we're going to do a transportation, we're doing the whole review, I would like to see us look at a scenic road designation, and we can see outcomes with that as far as economic development and tourism. And a few things for consideration and just things that I put down is that when we're looking at the transportation plan or the traffic plan and the scenic road designation, we need to look at lands that we currently own, the town that we own on those roads, and maintaining those lands, because they could fall into this. Those roads may become our scenic views, and again, there's a lot of people that use those roads, so we have to take our cyclists into consideration, our motorists, our walkers, our joggers, and all those roads are used for those ideas. So I would move that the scenic road designation suggestion be referred to the Director of Engineering and Works, Gary Loge, for review and comments to Council for the September 7th meeting, and be included in the Master Transportation Plan and the Strategic Plan for the town of Quispamsis.
Could I just get some clarification on the September 7th meeting?
Yes.
You want it referred to that meeting for what purpose?
Just for comments, or if they rather wait and just put it in the strategic plan, that's satisfactory as
I'm
well.
going to turn this over to the director, please.
Okay.
Your Worship, the clerk had forwarded me Councillor or Deputy Mayor Scryer's email and correspondence, and I've been in initial discussions with our consultants doing the Master Transportation Plan. This falls well within the policy documents and our active transportation review components that we would want to look at. So my report on the 7th would essentially be, yes, we'll include this in the Transportation Master Plan, which has future delivery dates beyond September 7th. So I really wouldn't have anything substantial to say at September 7th that I can't already say tonight, in that it is something that we can incorporate into the review with some level of recommendations. The thing to recognize, and we've talked about it at length in different scenarios, with any asset that we develop, if we were putting in walking trails or lanes, access, scenic points, these become assets that we have to be able to pay for, manage, and then maintain after the fact. So those will all be taken into account as part of the review, but it is a concept that does fall well within the provisions of our traffic master plan, and we will incorporate it into the review.
With that being said, Your Worship, I would amend the motion to take out September. I'm sorry, Your Worship. With that, with the response from Mr. Loge, I would amend the motion to take out the date of September 7th. Just for review and comments, and no, to be included, I would amend it to say and to be included into the Master Transportation Plan
For consideration.
For consideration.
Okay, so there's a motion on the table. I'm looking for a seconder. Councillor Miller.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship.
Are you seconding the motion? I have a motion on the table. I need a seconder.
Well, second it just so we can have the discussion.
Okay,
So that-
thank
there we
you.
go.
So the motion's been moved by Deputy Mayor Schreier and seconded by Councillor Miller on the question. Councillor Miller?
Thank you. So I guess my comments are a couple. So the first comment will be everything's always in consideration for the strategic plan, but I don't think we tell what the strategic plan should be until we see it. So that's kind of the comment. But I'd like to hear from the Director of Engineering, because there's only 3 out of 4 of us, or 3 out of 7 councillors that are here, that we had already talked about expanding the Gondola Point Road, and I believe, and through Your Worship to Mr. Loge, is I believe from the conversations we had in the last few years was, one, we were just trying to fix some other roads. We had kind of delayed the Gondola Point area due to the fact that we were going to be doing the wastewater project, which is about $6.5–7 million. And part of that discussion was, at that same time, we're going to be building up the road bed. We were going to be also putting in sidewalks, which is kind of in tune to Deputy Mayor's request. And all these things come back to budget considerations, because in my current view right now, I would like to see, looking at the Rosse area, continue it, that it continues. You've got the bicycle trails all the way through. You've got a sidewalk all the way through. We always put benches on ours. So I guess through your worship to Mr. Loge, what are the tentative plans for the Gondola Point Road in the next 2 to 4 years? And kind of in line with what I just stated or with what Deputy Mayor has also requested.
Your Worship, yes, they're very much in line with what you envision. The next 5-year street capital program will have likely a 3-year phase program for the Gondola Point Road. As I've mentioned in my correspondence to council at our last meeting with regards to the construction of sidewalks, always a budgetary consideration. A kilometer of sidewalked road is an additional $450,000 on a road construction project. So ultimately, if council's decision is to allocate budgets to that type of a project, and we will cost it out in either way. A sidewalk, a widened shoulder with storm sewer, those types of provisions. It'll be ultimately this body's decision how we proceed with that. But right now, the plans are primarily circled around the next 3 years of gas tax allocations. We have the Roberts Lane lift station this year. We were looking at either alternating a water project and a sewer project, a water project and a sewer project, but in discussion with the treasurer, we have the ability to amend our schedule as long as we let the province know in advance. We can amend our schedule appropriately, that if we needed to do sewer project. So that 3 to 5 year window is still very much applicable. It's always up to council if we want to compress it, expand it in a particular year. It all boils down to, and most of the council has heard me at budget time, you give me the money, I'll spend it, that type of a scenario. But it is very much, as you said, that type of a vision. I agree. Is there some consistency with continuing the Rossay alignment with the sidewalk and a little bit of a widened lane? We will probably get a little, we have more constraints with the river than they did on their side because the water is it's closer. We don't have a lot of room to work with. And the banks are more steep on a lot of the sections where we are operating, so we may not have as much room to put a sidewalk behind the road alignments, and that's going to be the challenge for us in some areas. Then the question becomes with the scenic routes, if the point of this is waterfront access, then should the trail be on the water side where we have even less access because it's the steep drop-offs like that and it's more appropriate to be a lane? So those types of discussions we would probably formulate into the master transportation plan. I think it's very much in communication with the Director of Community Services, an active transportation plan discussion that we want to take. But it does marry up with the general vision that most of the councillors have expressed, that yes, we're talking the same language at this time. It's just a question, how do we mash it all together?
Thank you, Director Loge.
Sorry, thank you, Worship. And so I guess that's where I'm not sure that we need a motion. That I guess that was my question, because
it's going in the
there's a different there's a different motion if you want to change the street name and things like that. But I think we're kind of planning that way, and at the end is and I'll look over to another councillor. Regardless of what's in the strategic plan, it's always going to come down to a budgetary issue. Like we'd love to put bike lanes everywhere. It may be in the strategic plan, but it may not happen everywhere. So that's what, yeah, okay.
Thank you, Councillor Bigger.
Thank you, Your Worship. Forgive me if I'm just thinking out loud again here, needlessly, but I guess there's something of a tourism angle, it seems, in the implication of what you're suggesting, Deputy Mayor, about the potential beautification of these areas, trying to make them, as you say in your report here, something of a destination all their own, just being on them because of scenic lookouts and trying to capitalize on the sort of the historic value of them and so on. And so I don't know when it, to Councillor Miller's point about budgetary concerns, I don't know if there's, the capacity to research grant monies that can be acquired to help in the process of on those 3 roads in particular with a little Long Bay Passage concept, something like that. So I'm just sort of throwing that out as something to think about, I guess. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Luck. Deputy Mayor Schreier.
Yes, Your Worship. I just wanted to comment is the idea of having the scenic road designation. If a road is been designated, then we can integrate all the work that we're talking about, and it's not 2 years later saying, well, maybe we should have done this. If we have the scenic road designation and we have criteria for it, and that doesn't preclude plans going forward to happen on a road. It just enhances what a road may look like in the end. So I just don't, when we talk about there's plans already in place, which there is, let's integrate everything together. Let's make it sure that could it be that designation, could it be that destination place with enhanced, maybe, like I said, maybe it's that we look at, do we own properties on the certain roads that we need to keep in place because they would be beautiful viewing spots? Do we have, for instance, our pumping stations down the road, will they be decommissioned? What's the possibility of using those lands in the future? So I'm trying to look out and not right now. And I know it seems big, but I think let's get a panoramic view of what it could be.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. And Councillor Olson.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm thinking along the line of Councillor Miller. We've got some real demanding infrastructure work, just the basic stuff that has to be done in our community. I'm really happy with what we have been able to accomplish this summer, and to drive on the Hammond River Road and along the Model Farm Road and the intersection improvements and a lot of the other major thoroughfares that we've made improvements on, Quispamsis Road. I mean, those projects have been around since I've been on council, and we just got to them, and they're basic. I mean, we've got a comment about a road should have maybe had concrete curb and gutter on it, but we saved or didn't save, but we had to look at 190,000 versus 20,000 to put a widened asphalt surface, so that their plows could just wing back the snow in the winter instead of buying another snow blower, and then add that to the workload. I like the concept that Deputy Mayor Scryers is talking about, but I think it's something that could possibly be priced out at the time when we're looking at that. But we're looking at doing those roads in 3-4 year contracts. The bottom of Pettingill Road to get up to Ambassador Drive took us what, Mr. Lozier, 3 years, 4 years? I think longer than that. It took us 2 years to get around the corner.
From the bottom of the Quispamsis Road at the École de Pionnier to hit Ambassador, it was done in 2 phases, Your Worship. So it was 2 years, but it was 4 years to get to where we are today. So you're correct in that it's more than 1 year. They're bites that you have to take. So you're correct, Councillor Olson, is that it is a multi-year approach that we've been using.
I'm just saying that all those major thoroughfares are multi-year projects, and I just don't know where this falls into. I mean, it's love to have it, these to make some unique things, and I like the idea if those pumping stations are removed, they could be beautiful lookouts, along the river. That's a good concept, but I'm just not quite sure. I don't want to sound too negative, but I'm just trying to think of the practicality of it and the number of years it takes us to pave a road in Quispamsis. It's, we get a lot of roads, and we do 10 or 12 a year. I'm really surprised that we were able to do as much as we did this year. I'm very pleased that we did. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Olson. Director Lozier.
Your Worship, maybe as a little bit of a clarification, and I'm getting a clearer picture from the discussions, and my understanding with the Deputy Mayor's motion and my intent with it is we're looking at developing a scenic road policy, a scenic road component that we can put in our master transportation plan and our active transportation plan that doesn't necessarily commit us to putting everything in place now. But what it does, it says if what I envision happening is, yeah, we'd like to create a scenic road classification, and here are some of the things that you can do in that scenic road classification. There are lookouts, trails, whatever. But if you commit to the scenic road classification before you designate a scenic road, understand that you will be building these types of infrastructure. But it doesn't commit us to doing it now. It creates the concept, the policy to do it, the framework that we would do it in, the vision to do it in, and then we would say, okay, we can do, the loop, the Ritchie Lake, Little Lake and the Woods loop first. We already have the QR trail on one side. We link it now. We got to go around Cedar Grove Drive and then come back, and then so we've completed that loop. And maybe you've got a boardwalk that goes down to the Ritchie Lake, and there's your scenic loop. So you can do it in manageable bites. So that's my interpretation of what we would be doing with a master transportation plan, interpretation of a scenic drive designation. We wouldn't be saying you have to do this. It's, if you did it, here are the 3 or 4 areas that would happen. Here's what we've got. Very good point. The pump stations are going to be decommissioned, or similar to what we did in Wildwood, we actually incorporated educational components to the Wildwood wetland area, so that there's an overlook says this is our wetland pond, this is how it's done, the whole bit. So you have a pump station say this is a pump station, this is what it does. You can have any number of links throughout the community. Then it goes back to, okay, now how do you get people from one side of the street to the other? All that stuff that comes with it. But ultimately, you have to start with, here's what we would like to do, create that vision, and then how do you adopt it afterwards?
Thank you. Councillor Luck.
Thank you, Your Worship. I can see both sides to what people are saying, and I guess one thing that kind of struck me is what Councillor Olson had said about Pettingill, because even though I think it's the most beautiful street and is lined with benches, I would never feel safe biking on it. And I think to Deputy Mayor Schreier's point is that we do need to see kind of the big picture, even if we're not doing it tomorrow, because if we don't, sometimes thinking about it after the fact costs us more money because then we're tearing out sidewalks to put wider streets, etc. So I don't think we can commit to what streets, but I think the concept, I like that at least we should bring forward to the strategic planning and to the master transportation plan to perhaps even start out smaller to say, these are our goals for the future, and here's some roads that would easily be, adapted in the next 10 years as we add to it, or perhaps like driving at Model Farm, add some nice bike lanes, and then, make it to Hammond River Park, and then you have Means Cove. Like there's some really neat things, having a lookout. But again, I don't think it can happen tomorrow, so I can understand the concerns. But I think sometimes when we don't look far enough out, we get blinders on and we're just focused on, kind of getting the thing done. But sometimes it will cost us more in the long run. So anyway, that's my.
Thank you, Councillor Luck. Okay, on the question. So it's been moved by Deputy Mayor Schreier and seconded by Councillor Miller. Please vote now. Our next item on the list is the Kennebecasis Valley Fire Department invitation to strategic planning session, September 20th, 2021 at the Bill McGuire Center in Rothesay. We've been informed this evening that date has been preempted by the federal election, and we will hear back from Chief Ireland in the near future. Minister Daniel Allain, Local Government and Governance Reform announcement, Re-Canada Community Building Fund 2020 to 2021, top-up allocation and program change.
Minister Allain be thanked for his correspondence, indicating Quispamsis will receive a one-time 2021 top-up allocation of $1,274,469 under the gas tax, and the additional funding amount be referred to staff to review and prioritize the town's infrastructure and/or capacity building projects, and bring back the recommendations to council in September as to resubmitting a revised 2019-2023 capital investment plan, which includes the top-up allocation as required in order to access the additional funding.
It's been moved by Councillor Thompson, seconded by Councillor Olson. On the question, please vote now. Sorry. Councillor Luck, did you want to speak to this?
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. The reason I brought this up is, just speaking with a number of residents, it's somewhat surprising and a little bit saddening to hear people comment that they don't know some of these amazing offerings that we have in our community. And I mean, it's by no fault of anyone. Sometimes you don't know what you don't know. So if you don't know to go to the website to find them, you don't know they exist. So anyway, with that said, I'm just as guilty. I've heard about this Hammond River Park for a while and didn't really know where it was. So I thought, people have asked, me where it's from, where it was. So I thought I'm going to go and explore. And lo and behold, I got lost because I was thinking, well, I looked and it was just up kind of off the Neck Road. And I was really surprised that I there was no sign, there was not even a little trail to turn into a residential street. And I do appreciate that we don't have a lot of wayfinding signs for other trails that we have. However, most of the other trails are off of something significant like the Qplex or off the Pettingill Road, so they're quite easily seen. So anyway, it just got me thinking because then I posted it in social media and a number of people were like, where do I find this park? And I'm thinking it's, I think, the most beautiful trail system that we have in our valley. And it's, it's a shame that more of our residents don't know, especially right now where, we're seeing a growth in our community and we're, having great promotion with Envision St. John. So I think we're going to have even more people come to visit. So I'm just, again, I guess my questions were, or what I'd like to discuss is how can we improve or build awareness of all these great offerings our town has, as well as make them easy to find. So that is kind of, why I suggested, I'm calling it a Q map. And I know this was brought up in the past, but I think, when I listened to discussions in the past, I think people get caught up on a traditional map. And I do have an example, and I did attach it. This is something from St. Andrews, where it only has the main roads. Like, so if if we add a subdivision, it would never show up on this map. It really, truly is a map of the main roads where, someone can quickly look and go, wow, like, okay, there's an awesome trail system here. And, oh, here's our Means Cove Beach. So, a newcomer, even someone that's lived here for years and years could quickly look at this map that could be easily downloadable or even, again, promoted. People could find, some of these beautiful areas in our town. So anyway, I just wanted to make that as a proposal that, we can think about. One of the things that I guess I would like to see us do perhaps sooner than later, if we have the budgetary just as kind of regular upkeep, is to perhaps add a sign at the corner of Rayner Drive so that if people are trying to find their way, once you get on the Neck Road, it would be really great just to even have a little sign that says trail so people go, oh, I turn here on this residential street to actually get to the sign that says Means Cove Park. So anyway, that was just something. But, maybe in the future, looking at ways of really promoting all this amazing infrastructure and beauty and all the, amazing work that the Director of Community Services, has done over the last number of years with our trails. Some of them are obvious and some aren't as obvious. And as I talk to residents, again, some of them know about them and other ones don't. So I think it would be great to make sure that people are aware that we have these amazing resources at their fingertips and how they can easily find them. So that's my, and if anyone wants to see the actual map that I attached, I have it here. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Luck. Councillor Donovan.
Thank you, Your Worship. Similar to Councillor Luck, I've also had quite a few people bring up some of the same general concerns that they had no idea our community had so many trails. I find what happens is a lot of people either stumble on them or it's kind of like a word of mouth thing. But I truly believe we need something. I'm in favor of developing something, anything to keep our residents informed because, in my opinion, there's not really a whole lot of sense in investing a ton of money or a ton of time in grooming trails or having trails if nobody knows about them. So with that being said, yeah, I'm in favor of it, and that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Donovan. Okay, I believe there's a motion. Councillor Thompson.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. I know we have a number of very well-used trails. I'm not sure what the numbers are. I'm sure our Director of Community Services has a pretty good idea what the usage of on all our trails are. If I will refer that to her.
Sure, Your Worship. Recent statistics for the summer would indicate that we have over 5,000 people per month on we have 3 trail counters out on the QR trail and 2 on the Great Trail. And right now we're averaging well over 5,000 people using those trails per month. And I would also point out that we do have a specific, I'm not sure if the motion is specific to trails, but we do have trail maps online and paper copies at the Qplex and here at the town hall. So I just wanted to share that, but it sounds like it might be more than just trails that we're speaking about tonight, but we do have trail maps that are requested and well used by our residents.
Thank you. I believe Councillor Luck was also asking for a sign down on the Neck Road and Renyard Drive, if I'm not mistaken. I'm going to next in queue, Councillor Luck.
Oh, thank you, Your Worship. Thank you, Dana, for the information. And I think it's amazing. And I think it's, again, it's wonderful that 5,000 people per month use it. I use the trails daily, so keep in mind that would be 30, like I would count for 30 uses. Just so to put that, but to put that into perspective. So it seems like a lot, and it is a lot. But I think that, again, you don't know what you don't know. And I'm so proud to live in Quispamsis. I was driving down Model Farm Road to get here, and I thought, my gosh, like with all the crap going on in the world, I feel so blessed to actually live in such a beautiful community. The sun was shining. And, I just think that, throughout COVID, our residents have experienced our town and have found some beautiful places to, to find a bit of reprieve. But again, I think it's the responsibility of us to make sure, if you don't know what you don't know, you're not looking for it. And I think there are some ways. So even having some, perhaps, kind of signs along the road. So someone says, oh, like Hammond River Park, what's that? So again, because you have to look for the map to go, oh, there's a map. Or you have to go on the website to look specifically for a trail. So I would love to see us kind of look at how can we, look at ways that are fairly inexpensive to kind of get people to even, I've lived here for 20 plus years, and I'm embarrassed to say that I had never been to Hammond River Park. I always thought it was on the other side of the river where the Hammond River Angling Association was. I just thought, oh, it's somewhere over there. And I was blown away with the beauty, and I will definitely be back now that I know where it is after getting lost. So anyway, I just wanted to kind of point that out, that I think that we can do a better job. And again, it's not to take away from the great job that the town has been doing to date. I just think that, we're always looking for ways to improve. And I think, people, throughout COVID have discovered the beauty of our trails. And I would really like to expand that so more of our community members know what we have to offer when it comes to trails or even just other infrastructure, and you know, how they could easily get to it. And I guess my suggestion around the QMAP is, you know, we have a lot of businesses that potentially we could pull in, so it wouldn't even cost us anything. You know, it would be something that they could actually use it as a promotional tool as well. And it would be something that once it's developed, unless we're adding a new beach or a new park, it wouldn't have to be updated very often. But again, I guess my two asks would be for us to consider that when we're looking at strategic planning. And then a more immediate ask is if we could potentially at least have a sign on that corner of Rainer Drive that even says trail with an arrow, so people go, ah, okay, I'm heading in the right direction. Because I think the other ones are quite easy to find because, you know, they're marked from the Qplex, or they're very obvious from Pettingill Road. So anyway, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Luck. Please remind me, did we read the motion yet?
Well, I don't know that we have a mover. Was that a motion that you're making?
Councillor Thompson, you read the motion, I believe, did you?
No, she didn't.
Oh, okay, sorry, that's...
Councillor Luck can read her motion and I'll second it. Councillor Luck made the motion and Deputy
I have three more people here that want to speak, so Deputy Mayor Schreier.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. So I'm just looking at the motion, and I guess it needs to be amended because she's asking for a sign as well. It needs to be added, or just a small something for the trail. I understand, and I do get that. You know, I was looking at some of our bylaws. Bylaw 54, it was to encourage and support, promote the development of attractions to enhance tourist visitation, Means Cove, Hammond River Park, Ritchie Lake, Gondola Point Beach. So I understand what you're saying, Councillor Luck, and I think that there is something that can be done. I'd always, you know, I know people don't use paper anymore, but I had always envisioned that Quispamsis would have some type of signage that have a map on it with our tourist attractions, or, you know, it could be as easy as developing a map and it sits down here at the town hall in glass, so people are visiting if you wanted something in paper. And I understand your concept, and I think that we should look at something to make sure that you're not only talking about trails, but our attractions are supported. And I think we could get business online as well. So referring it to the strategic plan, I think it's a good idea. So I would second your motion if you want to add the sign.
Councillor Olson.
Thank you, Worship. I was prepared to make that motion. That's why I've been on the so you're motioning now. You're moving. You're moving it. So I'm no. I'll wait and vote. I like the idea. I like the concept.
So do you want me to read the motion?
No, it's there. We've got it now. But I think that it would complement what our Director of Communications, no, what is her? Director of Community Services has already created in the town. I mean, I've seen the book on trails and all that, but something a little maybe a little fancier and colorful, and she is aware of what's available in St. Andrews because that's where she's from. But no, I'll wait for the vote. I'm sorry. I'm ready to go.
Okay, so the motion has been moved by Councillor Locke, seconded by Deputy Mayor Schreier on the question. Please vote. Sidewalks, Quispamsis Road Hill. Councillor Donovan.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm about to make everybody's night a whole lot easier. I was reminded by Ms. Snow that this item, the request for an update on the Quispamsis Road Hill, was touched upon in a previous staff report dated July 7th that I must have skimmed over by mistake. So my apologies on that. And if there are no, similar questions, I'd move that my correspondence be referred to the 2022 budget deliberation process for further review and discussion at that time.
Thank you. It's been moved by Councillor Donovan, seconded by Deputy Mayor Schreier. On the question,
Location, is that correct? Thank you.
thank you. On the question, Councillor Olson?
No.
No? Okay. Councillor Thompson, your light is flashing. Did you have? Okay. Councillor Thompson?
I move second reading.
We didn't have the vote on the first one yet.
Yes, we did.
The vote thing.
Did it come up?
I pushed the button too quick. And then I canceled. But then smoke or something?
So do we have to re-vote on that?
It's 7 voted in favor.
Okay, so carried, 7-0. Okay, Councillor Thompson?
I move a second reading to the same thing.
Moved by Councillor Thompson, seconded by Deputy Mayor Schreier. On the question,
I'm just looking at the visual that was attached. So I just wanted to make sure, because it doesn't look like it would impede visibility of where they want to put it. But I just wanted to make sure that it was far enough back. And then also I didn't know if there was any suggested, because sometimes what happens is with the sign that, they've kind of given as an example, people like to put trees and shrubs and stuff around that base. So all of a sudden, again, I just want to make sure that it's not going to impede, because I have tried to pull out of that area in the past, and especially because you're pulling onto the arterial. I just want to make sure that that has been considered. I'm sure it has, but I just brought it up as my one question. Thank you.
Your Worship, as part of our sign bylaw, there is a provision that requires them to have a clear zone underneath the signs. So that is something that we can enforce as part of the proposal. If you look at their proposal, that they don't show us a landscape feature underneath it. It's pretty much the 2 pylons, and for us, what we would do is look to enforce that. Now, not saying that we wouldn't allow low shrubs or flowers that could make it beautification, but 100% to your comment, we make sure that that clear view area is maintained.
thank you, Director Loge. On the question, please vote now.
Is it on the top of the road that you're concerned about on the old coach, that there be no U-turn, or because there's no exit out of the old coach road? Once you're down there, you have to turn around and come back out. So I'm not quite sure what the U-turn is implying.
Your worship, the town's received some complaints from the residents immediately adjacent to that intersection, the dentist's office, the two neighbors down below, as well as the police department, in that, and not to paint all the people with the same brush, but the heaviest traffic is during schools when parents are dropping the children off. They make the loop and then they come back and then they come into the old coach road to make the U-turn to come around, because they're only allowed to go in that one way at the school to make the drop off. And so what they do is when they want to go back the other way, they come out, make the U-turn so they can continue on rather than going down all the way. So they're shortcutting by making that, and the pickup and drop offs are the greatest indication, the greatest infractions, and they're turning in private property. And there have been near misses with walkers going to school of parents dropping other kids off who almost hit kids walking by. So the police cannot enforce a no U-turn without a sign. And in order for us to have a sign, we need a bylaw, and that's the purposes of this evening's motions, Your Worship.
Thank you, Director. Councillor Thompson, your light was flashing. Okay. On the question, did we have? Okay. On the question, so it's been moved by Councillor Thompson, seconded by Councillor Olson. Please vote now. Councillor Olson, seconded by Councillor Donovan. On the question, please vote now. It's been moved 7-0. Thank you. New business, item 11. Proposed Town of Quispamsis Safety Policy Number 073 and Associated Safety Program Manual 2021. There's a motion. Councillor Olson.
Yes, I'd move council approve proposed safety policy statement number 073, the introduction statement to the town for the town's operational safety program manual.
It's been moved by Councillor Olson, seconded by Councillor Bigger. On the question, Councillor Schreier?
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. I just want to, this is replacing the old safety policy, or this is a brand new safety policy? And the next question is, was WorkSafe involved with the creation of this policy?
An old policy and an old safety program that we had. So the Joint Health Safety Committee has been working on completely revamping the plan over the last few years. This is mandated by WorkSafe NB, and it's a requirement under the Occupational Health and Safety Act. So the operational document needs to be reviewed once a year, and that's mandated by WorkSafe NB.
Thank you very much. On the question, I see no further. Please vote now. Item 12, reports. Councillor Donovan.
Yes, Your Worship, I'd move that the reports, item 12, be received and filed.
It's been moved by Councillor Donovan, seconded by Councillor Olson. On the question, seeing there are none, please vote now. Financial signing officers and appointment of assistant town treasurer. Deputy Mayor Schreier.
Yes, Your Worship. I would move that acting CAO Aaron Kennedy be added to policy number 012, financial signing officers, as an additional banking signing officer in the absence of CAO DeVille.
It's been moved by Deputy Mayor Schreier, seconded by Councillor Donovan. On the question, Councillor Olson?
No.
No? Okay. Councillor Bigger?
Nope.
No, lights were flashing. Okay. On the question, seeing there are none, please vote now. Hope you find joy in the rest of your week. Thanks very much, everybody. Have a safe drive home.